partner in one, and you are in tune to gotkushTV.
There was empires in Africa called Kush, Timbuktu, where every race came to get booked. My success to you, even if you wish me the opposite. Sooner or later, we'll all see who the prophet is.
Achomi na jeli gbojokwe ni biane nyenko gotkushTV nyeyiradon. My name is Na Jeli Gbojokwe, and right now you're watching gotkushTV. Thank you.
Minebele obiama Mina bakabusi nengre Mefele sama Mina bakabusi nengre Minebele obiama Mina bakabusi nengre Mefele sama Mina bakabusi nengre Minebele obiama Mina bakabusi nengre Mefele sama Mina bakabusi nengre Minebele obiama Mina bakabusi nengre Mefele sama Mina bakabusi nengre Minebele obiama Mina bakabusi nengre Mefele sama Mina bakabusi nengre Minebele obiama Mina bakabusi nengre Mefele sama Mina bakabusi nengre Minebele obiama Mina bakabusi nengre Mefele sama Mina bakabusi nengre Minebele obiama Mina bakabusi nengre Mefele sama Mina bakabusi nengre Minebele obiama Mina bakabusi nengre Mefele sama Mina bakabusi nengre Minebele obiama Mina bakabusi nengre Mefele sama Mina bakabusi nengre Minebele obiama Mina bakabusi nengre
gotkushTV presents Sankofa, The Future of Black History, a unique Black History Month online series exploring all dimensions of time as we chronicle the Black past, command the Black present, and empower the Black future. Workshops include The Future is Black, Why is Black History Under Attack? With ShakaRa, We Create Value, The Ingenuity of Enslaved Africans, with Robin Walker, Ancestral Calling, Agriculture, and the Opobo Library Initiative with Aya Eneli. Quantum Field Theory as African Heritage with Asar Imhotep. For full information including dates and registration, visit gotkushtv.com. We have made history. We are making history. There is history still to be made. Sankofa, The Future of Black History. A Black History Month series not to be missed. Sankofa, The Future of Black History is proudly sponsored by Black History Walks, #1 for Black History talks, films, and walks in London. For more information, do check blackhistorywalks.co.uk. We be thankful unto the Mother, Father, creative life force of the universe. Kudzai Muzimu Mukuru. Give praises unto our great ancestors. Abibi Tumi, Abibi Fahodi, African power and African liberation for all African people. You don't know, say it is Ojima Day, Tuesday, the 3rd of October. Yes, indeed, it is Black History Month in the UK. And you don't know, we are here for our weekly live show, open house, ZIVANAYI. And for those who are not aware, ZIVANAYI is a beautiful word spoken in the beautiful language of Shona, which is mostly spoken in the beautiful nation of Zimbabwe. And it simply means getting to know. Let us get to know, yes? You know what I'm saying? So we want to get to know each other and get to know about ideas, thoughts, patterns, you know what I'm saying? Activity, works, what go on in the African world. And this is what we are here for every Ojima Day Tuesday, usually from the hour of 8 p.m. We're starting an hour later this week, family. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, this wasn't fully announced, so I do apologize for any inconveniences. Those who are waiting an hour earlier, it's all well and good, but yeah, man just had some other business to take care of as part of the Manhood Academy Global. And so shout out to the brothers and sisters of Manhood Academy Global, particularly the brothers for obvious reasons. But yeah, we're just engaging in some of that work, and so we put back the start time so that we could avail ourselves for a meeting with Manhood Academy Global, which is all good stuff. All right. So once again, just for those who are just coming in, yes, indeed, it is Black History Month, and you will know that gotkushTV has our Black History Month series on stream. We begin tomorrow, family, and I'm first up to bat with the title of The Future is Black. Why Black history is under attack, why Black history is under attack. Do get your tickets now, for tomorrow's session, or you can get your tickets for the whole series and pay less, at gotkushtv.co.uk. You don't know, gotkushtv.co.uk. You will have also seen that our sponsor, one of our sponsors, is in fact Black History Walks. And so I want to encourage brothers and sisters to check out the Black History Walks website. Yes, indeed, Black History Walks website, and get all of the information on their latest events. I'm going to try and show you some of their latest events. That was on the Sunday, the 1st of October. So the next one looks like the image of Black in Tate Britain. Tate Britain is the home of British art from the 1500s to the present day, where we see Black presence move from the object of economic capital to creators of cultural capital, mirroring and changing position of Black folks in British society. The cultural movement in Britain in Britain from the Enlightenment to Romanticism is tracked as seen in how British art focusing on its black presence developed over that period, including the response to slavery in the 18th century, to feminist and gay art of the 20th century. If you want to understand the role of black presence in Britain, British art tour, in British art, then this tour is for you, and you can check that out at blackhistorywalks.co.uk. All right, so that is that, brothers and sisters. Once again, blackhistorywalks.co.uk. Do check it out once again, yeah, and check out and support the works of Black History Walks in general. They're doing some good, powerful works. Like I said, number one for Black history films, talks, tours, and walks, yeah, in London. Okay, all right, kings and queens, we are going to stop sharing lesser, and we're going to get into a bit of a different conversation, yeah, here today. I'm going to do something a little bit different, yeah. Before I do so, let me big up the chat. Big up to Immigrants, yes, over there in the US of A. Which part of the USA, Immigrants? We look forward to, you know, we appreciate all of our guests from all about and around the world, and we are saluting once again Titans TV. You don't know, and check out Titans TV right about now, family. A few of us are doing what is called Our Corner at Speaker's Corner on a weekly basis, and said discussions are being published through Titans TV as well as content over everything at the moment. Yeah, those two channels are going to be publishing our conversations, yeah, for Our Corner over at least throughout the month of October. All right, so do check out those conversations right there, and salute Titans TV for the work that he's continuously doing. You know what I'm saying, keeping, you know, Black conscious conversations out there for our people. Much appreciated. In fact, brother is doing a series on the Book of Coming Forth by Day, also known as the quote unquote Egyptian Book of the Dead. Yeah, very informative stuff that the brother is putting out at the moment, kings and queens. So do check that out, and salute Titans TV. Thank you for being with us. And in fact, you might appreciate the conversation that we're about to have today, Titans. So do stay tuned. All right, as you can see, the title of the show is social media free labor, and the conversation is going to be based around a video interview with a lecturer, economist, politician, and somewhat of an activist, yeah, called Yanis Varoufakis. Yeah, like if you might not know his name, but you probably, if you watch news regular or stay in tune to, you know, TED Talks or Intelligence Squared, you know, that kind of scene, yeah, in the digital space, you probably likely have come across Yanis Varoufakis on one or two occasions. All right, and he's done a few interviews recently, because he has a new book, and we're going to get into that in a second. Yeah, we're going to get into that in a second. So do stay tuned, because it's going to be a very interesting conversation as always. In fact, let me do this now. So for those who are watching, because I multi-stream, yeah, via my personal as well as gotkushTV for this show. And so you have to be watching, however, via gotkushTV if you wish to come live, because I am going to pin the link for the live conversation, yeah, to come live. If you want to actually come live and share a thought, an opinion, a perspective, you can do so by coming live via gotkushTV. And so the link to come live is going to be pinned to the chat of gotkushTV stream. All right, so I'm going to post this now, yeah, and pin it to the chat so everybody can see it. And when we open up the lines, you can feel free to come live, or if you got something that you want to share yourself anyway, just feel free to click it now and, you know, be in the waiting room, and I'll bring you through when we are ready. All right, when we are ready. And so all on there. All right, so the live link, the link to come live on the panel is pinned to the top of the chat of the gotkushTV chat. And we see Coffee Campbell is in the building. Indeed. And yeah, well, this conversation is not gonna, it's gonna annoy you somewhat, but you might find it interesting still. And bigging up to MCE Soul Music. Yeah, greetings. Big up to all people from Yard and Foreign. You don't know we're there. Yeah, and it's gonna be a beautiful conversation. Now I'm gonna add a feature. To ZIVANAYI Live, every week. And the feature is that at the beginning of the show, I'm going to share some ancestral wisdom. I'm going to share some ancestral wisdom from the many and varied and expansive spiritual texts and wisdom traditions, of our ancient African ancestors from all about the place. That could be from a Kemetu perspective. It could be from a Yoruba perspective. It could be from a Bakongo perspective. It could be from a Zulu perspective, a Kikuyu perspective, whatever perspective. Our ancient African ancestors preserved much wisdom and knowledge within our spiritual text and wisdom traditions. And so we're going to share something right now, and this one is taken from the sacred gospel of Hunhu Ubuntu. And for those who are not aware, the sacred gospel of Hunhu Ubuntu originally written or compiled in the Shona language, which is again spoken mostly in Zimbabwe. And it's a brother by the name of Simbarashe, compiling the wisdom of his elders who were priests, and initiates into the indigenous Shona spiritual system. And compiled it in a text which he refers to as the sacred gospel of Hunhu Ubuntu. And Hunhu or Ubuntu is it has many meanings but it's often translated as peoplehood. But the deeper element of the terms Hunhu, and by the way, Hunhu and Ubuntu mean the same thing, but Hunhu is the same word as spoken in Shona, and Ubuntu is the word as spoken in Zulu, Xhosa, and many other languages. And so the term, it's about the order of social relations, but within that it really gleans or alludes to the order within the cosmos and how that is reflected, and replicated within our human relations. And so that's a brief explanation. There's more that could be said on that, but that's another subject for another time. Today, however, I really just want to share this particular passage from the sacred gospel of Hunhu Ubuntu. All right, and it's a very, very interesting passage, and so we're gonna do this every week. Let's draw on some wisdom, from our ancient African ancestors, because we for know that our ancestors did develop and produce wisdom traditions and spiritual texts, and oftentimes we're very estranged from these things, and so we want to highlight these things through ZIVANAYI on a weekly basis. And so this passage speaks of the universal I. So the universal I, Ini or Mina, so that's again Shona and other so-called Bantu languages, exists equally in all creatures. None has more than another. Knowing and fully understanding this truth liberates one from the profanity of the individual I. Ini Mina. There is no moment like the precious of precious moments when one realizes that one is not the body but boundless spirit, the limitless. The science of looking up at the stars and the study of the heavens is known as astronomy. The looking into self, the study of self, is known as Hunhu Ubuntu science, a most noble science. The Hunhu Ubuntu scientist looks within self, discovers the hidden truth of existence, the universal law, and with judicious skill, silently shares the great discovery with all. There is the misguided pleasure seeker, submerged in mammoth callousness, to whom knowledge of self is deemed as unsightly. Such a blind one does not understand spiritual property, which is divine abundance. The science of the soul is an awakening to self, to Hunhu Ubuntu, a realization of one's original nature. Yeah, and so there's so much we could say about this particular passage here. Yeah, but it's really emphasizing the I and I vibration. Rastafari say I, and I is like the I, which is the first person, but there's no second person. So the I, but referring to the I as I, emphasizes the idea that the I is a part of I and I, we are one. Yeah. And so within this conceptualization, it's very interesting that Rastafari conceptualized that as I and I. And then in the sacred gospel of Hunhu Ubuntu, you have this concept called universal I, yeah, which is seeing ourselves in connectedness with our family, our community, our nation. Seeing ourselves in connectedness with nature, seeing ourselves in connectedness with the universe and the cosmos at large. Yes. And so it says there is no moment like the precious moment. Sorry, no, not that part. It says knowing and fully understanding this truth, yeah, liberates one from the profanity of the individual I. Yes, yeah. And so we go beyond our individual selves, yeah, and we find our order within our connectedness to each other and the universe. And then it speaks about Ubuntu science, which is looking into the self and studying the self. Papa Garvey, Marco Bazaya Garvey says knowledge begins, yeah, with knowledge of self. All right, and so this idea, looking into the self, because we are connected inherently with the cosmos and the universe, looking into the self, yes, is the beginning of knowledge of all that is. And so that allows us to discover the hidden truth of existence, which is the universal law. And the universal law is in fact Hunhu, is in fact, yeah, Ubuntu. All right. And that will become clearer as I share more passages, yeah, from this particular beautiful text. And this is a very, very little known text, but a very powerful one because of the ideas that it shares, and just taking the time to document the wisdom tradition as it comes through our Shona and other East and Southern African ancestors. It's a powerful, powerful work. And so we give thanks to Simbalashe for doing this work, yeah, and no doubt I'll expose you to more passages from this text as we engage in ZIVANAYI more and more and more. All right, family, that is our opening. I hope ones and ones appreciate that, a reading from the sacred gospel of Hunhu Ubuntu, and we're going to be engaging a passage, yeah, from our ancient wisdom traditions every week, yeah, and I hope ones and ones appreciate that. Shouting out to the melanated goddess, my Panama sister, my Panama sister with Jamaican lineage. You know what I mean? And big up to Lead Clinton, yeah, big up to Lee Clinton. All right, so let's get into the major thing today, family. I'm gonna play 10 minutes, yeah, and I'm gonna stop it every now and then of an interview with Yanis. Sorry, let me work out the I seem to have lost the video here. Here we go. Right, so yes, what was I saying? Yeah, I'm gonna play an interview with Yanis Varoufakis. For those who are not aware, like I said, he's a lecturer, university lecturer. He was the Minister of Finance for Greece for about 5 months, yeah, in and around 2010, when the Greece economy was basically in free fall. And yeah, you know, he's a Greek guy, but he's written a book called Techno-feudalism, What Killed Capitalism, yeah? And what I'm about to play you is full of like economic theory. However, the economic theory, though important and contextualizes a lot of what is about to be said, is not the emphasis of where I'm going to go with this. As you see, the show is entitled, Is Social Media Free Labor? Yeah. And so within his analysis, he gives a perspective on our usage of social media. Yeah. And this is a Channel 4 interview. which is how I picked this up because I watch enough news. And that's particularly what interests me about, well, all of it interests me really, but for the purpose of this show, that is particularly what I'm interested in. Yeah. And so, like I said, I'm going to play the first 10 minutes to contextualize and then, you know, allow him to make the point, and I'm going to comment on it periodically, and then I'm going to invite others to comment on the thing also. All right. So, like as usual with ZIVANAYI, you can feel free to come in and add to the conversation that I've raised, or you can feel free to raise your own conversation or delve into something about what I've raised that I haven't said yet or whatever. Yeah, it's free, it's open house, you know what I'm saying? But this is just where I'm going to go with it today. All right. And so, yeah, there's some very interesting ideas, all right? So for those who are not in the UK, this is Channel 4 News, yeah, which is one of the major news stations in the UK. And Yanis Varoufakis is being interviewed on Channel 4 News, okay? We're going to get to the no. When I press play, just give me a 9, yeah? Give me a 9 in the chat if you can hear everything clearly.
And the United States have big tech. Europe, Britain, nothing, zero. We are irrelevant. I know it's very harsh to say that, but Britain and the European Union better understand that these Brexit discussions and all that stuff that has been occupying us now for the last 7 years has rendered us irrelevant without cloud capital.
Give thanks, family.
Hello and welcome to Ways to Change the World. I'm Krishnan Guru-Murthy, and this is the podcast in which we talk to extraordinary people about the big ideas in their lives and the events that have helped shape them. My guest this week is the Greek economist Yanis Varoufakis. He was briefly, in 2015, the Greek finance minister during the height of the debt crisis. He has been involved in electoral politics in his own country. He has campaigned around Brexit and been very involved with the Labour Party in this country. But he recently lost his parliamentary seat himself. He is the author of many books, and his latest is called Techno-feudalism: What Killed Capitalism. Thank you very much indeed for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Let's go through this very simply. I mean, first of all, feudalism. By feudalism, I imagine medieval peasants who are effectively forced to live on the land of their lords and masters. They give him a slice of their produce or their
Rent.
income,
Yes.
and they are basically bound to him and have no freedom. Is that what you mean by feudalism?
That's what we mean by feudalism, but not by techno-feudalism.
So what is techno-feudalism?
I'm glad you started with feudalism, because the great transformation which has created the modern world was the one from feudalism to capitalism. As you correctly put it, feudalism was a socio-economic system predicated upon land and land ownership. So the aristocracy owned the land, it got a lot of economic, social, political power. It was all one thing back then. There was no distinction. If you had political power, you had economic power, unlike under capitalism. And the wealth was transferred to the ruling class, to the aristocracy, through, as you put it, rent, taking a slice of the produce, of the harvest of the peasants who didn't labor for a wage. There was no labor market. You couldn't quit. You didn't receive a wage. You just kept that which the landlord or the sheriff operating on the landlord's behalf would leave behind after the harvest was in. Then you had a fantastic
All right, so yeah, like I said, yeah, I'm not focusing on the economic theory, but it is important, yeah, to lay the framework, yeah, for where we're gonna go with the conversation. So at this point, he's defining, and by the way, give thanks to Kushti, big at yourself, welcome, and Titans for confirming that the audio is good. All right, so he's discussing feudalism, yeah, which is a period of development, particularly within European history, yeah, not exclusively, but particularly within European history. And I emphasize that because feudalism is not universal; it didn't exist everywhere, okay, especially in the form that it existed in Europe. And by way of definition, feudalism is the dominant social system in medieval Europe, yeah, in which the nobility held lands from the crown in exchange for military service, and vassals were in turn tenants of the nobles, while the peasants, also known as serfs, or villains and serfs, which is actually the term, the origin of the. Anyway, let's not go into that. Were obliged to live on their landlord's land and give homage, labor, and a share of produce, notionally in exchange for military protection. Okay, so that's in general terms what feudalism is. In short, kings and queens or monarchies rule. They have a noble class which act as landlords, and everybody else lives on the land that is controlled by their landlords. And because we're generally speaking dealing with agricultural societies, anything where you grow, a portion of it has to go to the landlord, who hands it over to the king. Yes, usually the king, and sometimes in some circumstances the queen. Okay, so that's the general system of feudalism. All right, as is being broken down here, and so that's, if you go into economic theory, you'll see you get into more about what feudalism is. Yeah, the reason why I emphasize that this is not necessarily a universal system is, for example, to give an African-centered analysis. Typically speaking, within indigenous African societies, royalty and nobles didn't own land. Yes, because land was not a commodity to be owned. All right. So the systems in terms of kingship and queenship and monarchy in indigenous African societies, in indigenous American societies, didn't exist. Yes, in this kind of way. But it was a dominant system throughout Europe. This was a dominant system throughout Europe as it stood, as it says, during the medieval medieval period. All right, so that's a brief explanation, and it will make more sense why I've paused to explain that as we go forward. I'm going to continue now.
Transformation, the great transformation, as Karl Polanyi put it, from feudalism to capitalism. Power shifted from those who owned land to those who owned the machines, the steam engines, the factories, the steamships, the telegraphs, the later on electrical power generating systems. And wealth came from accumulation not of rents, but of profits. So you had commodification of land. Suddenly land became a commodity when the enclosures chucked out of the land the peasants and replaced them with sheep, if you remember. Of course you remember. And this is the beginning of the modern world, of modernity as we know it.
Okay, so general point, flow of European society. Once again, they transition from feudalism into capitalism, which is our current system of economics and governance as it stands throughout the Western world and throughout most of the known world, right? As far as planet Earth is concerned, okay? And so what the significant difference here is that the rule of monarchies and nobilities was replaced by the significant influence of a merchant class. Yes, people that were able to commandeer wealth through the development of corporations that had things like ships and were able to amass wealth to build factories and produce products and so on and so forth. Okay, so the transition from feudalism to capitalism was a shift in power from royalty to merchant classes, essentially. Yes, and capitalism was designed to give the merchant classes a greater say in how wealth is amassed, how wealth is accrued, how wealth is distributed, and so on and so forth. Yeah, and so that shift was also represented by a shift in political system. So the most obvious one is the fact that even though we still have a monarchy in the United Kingdom of Great Britain, the monarchy is a ceremonial head. The governmental head is the prime minister, who is the head of the parliament. Yes, and so oftentimes Parliament was represented in its early stages, even more particular, by basically men who have money, and property. All right, that was a large, and you know, still significantly to this day, that is the case, which is why you have a House of Commons and a House of Lords, and etc., 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 etc. Okay, and so this is a shift, yeah, in economic and political system, particularly in the Western world. Again, because not everybody had systems whereby land, as he said, was a commodity. Not everybody had this kind of a transition, but the world was brought into a capitalist mode of production, principally through Western colonization of the planet. Right? That's the way in which capitalism as an economic system spread, yeah, to the rest of the world. That's another story for another time. Yeah, it's not particularly germane to this particular discourse, but it is important for us to know, in particular as African people. All right, so that's just a brief explanation of what he's just said there. We're going to
Now, what am I saying with techno-feudalism? I'm saying that capital triumphed so magnificently that it mutated. It created a mutant version of it, which I call cloud capital. So what is the difference between cloud capital and normal capital? Take an industrial robot. That's traditional capital. It's very snazzy, it's very technologically advanced, it moves its own, it's got electronics in it, software and all that. But it does more or less the same job that the steam engine did. It automates production in the factory. Cloud capital is this network of machines and software which allows us to talk to one another, big tech. My hypothesis is that this new version of capital, cloud capital, is a very different beast from industrial robots and steam engines. And anyone who owns it owns effectively a new form of digital land. Think of Amazon.com.
All right. So again, yeah, this is a very interesting line of reasoning, yeah, that he's engaging at this moment in time. All right. So essentially, what he's arguing is that society, particularly Western society, moved from feudalism, rule of kings and queens and nobles, yeah, to capitalist, rule of the capitalists. All right. And then the capitalist mode of production has produced something that is called cloud capital, which is not about ownership of physical edifices or products, but ownership of digital property. Yes, digital platforms, which is analogizing to land. Okay, he's creating an analogy between the ownership of platforms digitally upon the internet and the ownership and control of land in the medieval period, coming right up through the capitalist mode of production. All right, so let us go forward.
Owns effectively a new form of digital land. Think of Amazon.com. It's like a cloud thief. It's a thief that lives in the cloud, effectively on a bed of cloud capital, which allows the new lord, Jeff Bezos, or whoever owns that particular piece of digital land, to charge rents. Because Jeff Bezos doesn't produce anything that you buy on Amazon, same with the owners of Alibaba and so on. What they do, however, is they charge 40%. Think about it, 40% is a gigantic rent on the price of everything that is sold to you on Amazon.com. Now,
so let us pause periodically for us explain what I go on. All right. So basically, now he's now analogizing the ownership of these big digital platforms to the ownership and control and commodification of land. Yes. All right. In the feudal economy, okay, of the medieval times. Yeah. And just like the feudal lords took rent in the form of produce from the serfs who were suppressed on their land and beholden to them for protection militarily, the digital landlords, so to speak, for example, Amazon, yes, takes rent in the form of a share of the profits of everything that is sold on Amazon. Yeah. He's given the statistic here, 40%. Yeah. So Jeff Bezos, for everything that is sold on Amazon, Jeff Bezos himself takes 40% of all of them things there. All right. But he produces nothing. Yes. Nothing that is sold on Amazon is produced by the owner of the platform. Okay. All of it is produced by other people, and the person who owns Amazon takes 40% of all of that selling that is going on. All right. So he's analogizing the relationship between people who sell on Amazon and the owners to the relationship between serfs and kings. So in effect, Bezos and the boys are the new nobility. Yes, the new monarchy within our current economic system. Yeah. Now, these are just interesting ideas for me at the moment. All right. Obviously, there are things that he's saying that cannot be disputed in real terms, but how he's contextualizing it and how he's framing it, I'm still understanding and working through to decide whether I agree with it, you know, or where I agree and where I might disagree, where I might have a difference of emphasis, and how I would apply this specifically to an African reality and all of these things here. But the ideas for me at the moment are just interesting things to consider. All right, so let's bear that in mind as we go forward. And I'm just engaging everybody in my own exploration of these ideas, yeah, as it stands right about now. We've got just under 4 minutes to go.
Now, this is not a theoretical point. My point, the point I'm trying to make in the book, is that this is a great transformation, which is, if you put your mind to it, it explains the reason why we have so much anxiety in the world. We have this polycrisis. The crisis of today is nothing like the crisis of the 1970s, even the cost of living crisis. The inflation we have today bears no resemblance to the inflation that we experienced in the 1970s. You had a period of deflation, a period of inflation. You have this gigantic disconnect between the amount of money in the economy. We never had so much money as we have now, globally speaking, across the West or the whole world. And yet investment is at the lowest level in proportion to how much money there is in the economy. And I do believe the answer lies in this fantastic transformation, very violent transformation of a world from capitalism to something that I call techno-feudalism, which is, of course, based on enormous quantities of capital, unlike the older version of feudalism that you described.
So there's
So just to explain that now, this is where the term techno-feudalism comes from, right? It's the idea that capitalism has involved people that have amassed capital under the capitalist system, have created a technological environment that has shifted the mode of production, so to speak, or the means of production in society from ownership of factories and mechanical institution to ownership of digital institutions. And for Yanis, this is a fundamental shift within the nature of the economic system. And so now he's saying that this is a mutation of capitalism, which is called which he's calling techno-feudalism. Okay, so it's the feudal order within a technological framework. As I've explained already, the feudal lords are the owners of the big tech companies. Yeah, so we are talking about now owners of Facebook and Instagram, owners of all social media, owners of this is one of the reasons why what name Tesla. What name? Why's his name got up my head? Tesla. Somebody remind me in the chat who me I talk about. The boy will buy Twitter and call it X what the year. Why's his name got up my head? You know when you just have a black moment. Somebody remind me anyway. Yeah. This is why he, as the owner of Tesla, wanted to get so get his foot into Elon Musk. Elon, that's it. They give that to Christy. Elon, yeah. The Anglo Boer, yeah. From South Africa, the Anglo Boer, you know what I mean? Yeah. Let me ask you now. Yeah, this is why he wanted to get into the social media world, because of the way the economy is running, in terms of the fact that ownership of digital spaces is the new form of currency. Information, yeah, is the new currency of the now. We live in the so-called information age. Yeah, so that's what's being alluded to and analogized here.
So there's a lot to
almost quantities of capital, unlike the older version of feudalism that you described.
So there's a lot to unpack there. So in terms of the analogy of rent and who are the serfs? Are the serfs all of us, or are they, who is paying the rent? Is it the makers of the goods that Amazon is selling, or what?
If you have an hour this week, you can learn a
Shame. Let me just repeat everything I just said. Big yourself, scattered minds. Yeah, big yourself, scattered minds. Big yourself, scattered minds. You don't know, in the building, and yes, in the space, Karen. Thank you for letting me know that I was on mute. So just bear in mind, family, that remember the question I'm asking today is social media a form of free labor? Yes. And if you follow the train of conversation, the reason why I'm asking that question should become clearer to you, and will become explicit. Yeah, very, very shortly. Explicit very, very shortly. All right, so do stay tuned. We're getting to the punchline. We're getting to the punchline.
Amazon is selling, or what?
The rents themselves are.
Amazon is selling, or is it the makers of the goods? All of us, or are they? Who is paying the rent?
Described.
So there's a lot to unpack there. So in terms of the analogy of rent and who are the serfs? Are the serfs all of us, or are they? Who is paying the rent? Is it the makers of the goods that Amazon is selling, or what?
The rents themselves are paid by the capitalists. So if you're producing a bicycle or a book, and you sell it through Amazon, through Alibaba, through a myriad of such platforms, now doing amazing business in Indonesia, in Africa. It's not just a Western phenomenon, right? Of course, in China. If you are producing stuff, material goods or services or movies, and you sell them through that kind of cloud feed, and you pay rent. For the very first time in the history of humanity, capital is being produced or reproduced by people who are not being paid as wage laborers.
Log that point, yeah. He said, for the very first time in human history, capital is being produced by people who are not wage laborers, yeah, which means that it's being produced by people who are not being paid to produce it. Okay? All right. So let's log that point. It's gonna become more clear in this.
So every time you post a review on Amazon, you walk around London or drive around London with your phone, and the phone is pinging Google Maps where you are.
Producing data.
So Google Maps becomes more valuable because it can predict congestion.
So again, yeah, just to make that point explicit, right? The idea is that, using the Google example, Google connects with your phone. Your phone system, if you're on Android, is controlled by Google. And whenever you're using your phone, even when your phone is asleep, yeah, it is collecting data. That data is a form of capital for Google, okay? But you, as the person who owns the phone, is producing the data that becomes Google's capital that they are able to turn into a profit. All right? That's the point that he's making there.
So you are contributing to the capital of these large conglomerates without being a paid laborer. I call that a cloud serf. Now,
so a cloud serf is analogous to the landed serf. Yeah, the serf who paid the nobles who paid the king. All right, in under a feudal order. Okay, so the capitalists now pay the rent. Yes, the serfs ensure that there is capital for the capitalist to make profits to pay the rent, if that makes sense. Yeah, before everybody I understand when I say, as I said, the economic theory is not the central point, but it's important to understand, yeah, the central point that is being made here. All right, but get yourself scattered. I think you're gonna find this one interesting as well. Yeah, so stay tuned.
Interestingly, when I was researching this book, I discovered that on average, conglomerates of the old capitalist type pay about 80 to 85% of their revenues to workers. Facebook pays 1%. Why?
So when he says capitalists of the old guard, yeah, he's talking about companies like Ford. Yeah, Volkswagen, maybe even Windows, yeah. Them kind of companies there, you know what I'm saying? The what's the word? What's the Unilever, yeah, them kind of companies there. And a significant amount of what they accrue is paid to the people that wages, yeah, to the millions of people that work for them. Okay, whereas as far as a share of what they accrue, Facebook pays like 1%, yeah, to people that work for Facebook. Yeah, and he's going to explore the reason why right here now.
To workers, Facebook pays 1%. Why? Because Facebook, the capital of Facebook, is produced for free by everybody who creates their own pages, posts messages, and sends reviews to one another, and so on.
But
and this is all free labor.
Yeah, but they would say this is not labor. This is not people working for us.
It is
This
work.
is people getting a product by choice. No one's forcing them to do it. They are choosing to use the platform that Facebook is, or whichever platform you might be talking about. And they are getting a convenience out of it. They're getting a service from that.
But that's irrelevant. It is true that people do it voluntarily. I do it. I couldn't live without my phone, without my TikTok, without my. I'm an addict as well. Right?
So are they serfs?
I volunteer. But voluntary serfdom is the worst kind of serfdom. But anyway, this is not an ethical point I make. It doesn't matter whether you're forced or we are not forced. The fact is that you're doing a lot of work. All these kids with uploading TikTok videos, they love it. If you took it away from them, they would hate you, especially if you're a parent, as I am, and I'm sure you are. But nevertheless, the fact remains, they put a lot of work. They don't think of it as work, but it is work. And it is work that is replenishing the capital stock of TikTok. Now, that from a macro perspective is crucial because you have capital being reproduced without wage labor. Now, why is it important? Because wage labor means that there are wages that are being paid, and those wages contribute to the demand for things in the marketplace. When you have all this labor producing capital, but it is not remunerated, that shrinks aggregate demand macroeconomically. And what does that mean? It means that central banks cannot get away without printing more money to replenish the demand. But then, especially when you have an inflationary cost of living crisis as we do now, there is a clash of objectives. On the one hand, to arrest rising prices. But on the other hand, if you don't print the money, because you have so much work that is not remunerated, then aggregate demand is shrinking. This is why central bankers are in a state of apoplexy. They do not know what to do. They are damned if they do, raise interest rates, and they're damned if they don't. So this is not a theoretical book, from my perspective. It's an attempt to understand the world we live in, including at the micro level, at the level of our kids. My concern is also a concern that the liberals should have about the concept of the liberal individual, because if you think about it, once upon a time, there was a strict demarcation between work and play and leisure.
And that's gone.
And that is gone. And it is gone because if you're producing capital, even in your sleep, more or less, if you are in a society where, I've been a professor for many years before I got into politics, I noticed that young people now are constantly angst-ridden about their social media. Why? Because they know that when they apply for a job, the interviewing panel will look at their social media. So they are constantly trying to create the self which they think is going to sell in the labor market. Now, this
family, I'm gonna pause it there. Yeah, I'm gonna pause it there. Because that's the essential point. By the way, big up to Leo in the building. Big up to Javier Meloman. Big up to Brother Davis. Love is just a verb. Yeah, in the building also. Yeah, Manhood Academy in the house. Big up yourself, King. Much love, yeah. And so I'm going to pause the video there because the essential point has been made. And so I just found this conversation interesting. Yeah. Now I do encourage ones to go and check out the full interview. Some very interesting ideas are being discussed here. Yeah. Now we understand, it's been said many times that if you come on a platform that, in this day and age and it's free to use, then the product is you. Okay. The product is you. Yeah. You are being used as a cog in the wheel of a market to be able to have others make money off of your use of the platform in various different ways. Okay, but what stood out to me here is this idea that essentially we all work for. So we're not only the products, but we are the labor force, yeah, of the social media platforms that we use. Right now, to give an example of this, yeah, I was running a little experiment on my Instagram, yeah, recently. And in fact, before I even get to that, yeah, I got on TikTok maybe a year and a bit ago. And when I first got on TikTok, my TikTok began to pop off, yeah, like none of my other social media, yeah. Like when we put on a video upon the TikTok, it fly gone, yeah. I put the same video on Instagram, it's doing half the numbers, and them thing there. Then the trade war between the Western world and China began to heighten, and there was a lot of news items on some months ago about British and American politicians, yeah, concerned about the public's use of TikTok because TikTok is owned by the Chinese and has connections to the Chinese government. Okay, and in and around that conversation taking place, I began to notice a marked shift, yeah, in the analytics for my TikTok use versus my Instagram use. Whereas the analytics were heavily in the favor, yes, of TikTok a while ago. Now the TikTok numbers were dwindling, yeah. And then I started to notice more parity between them, and now the Instagram numbers seem to be a bit more, flexing their muscles, yeah. So between I wanted to run an experiment, yeah. We're trying to build platforms, gotkushTV, etc., etc. And so I was running an experiment between July and the month of Messiah, yeah, August. And the idea was just to post every day, yeah, for 30 to 31 days, and just be able to assess the impact, yeah. And it was a successful experiment, you know. Following grew exponentially, you know, and you know, numbers of views that what usually you hadn't seen, and a couple of them went significantly viral. In fact, I posted a video a month ago, and I get comments from that video every day till now, over a month ago, in fact, yeah. And I know that it's the video that I get the most comments on as far as Instagram is concerned, yeah. So I did that, you know, and you know, saw that there's a viability in posting that much. Yeah, I posted every day, usually videos, but every now and then it was just a picture and a caption. All right. So come end of Messiah now, I'm slowing down. All right. So I'm not posting as much and so on and so forth. Yeah. And then you start to see a significant drop in the statistics, in the analytics. Yeah. So whereas, you know, like there was a period where every video, yeah, was getting a certain amount of views. Now your post that is struggling to get to what you was getting easy, yeah, 2 weeks ago. All right. Why? Because you're posting less. Yeah. And so it encourages a situation in which you have to be constantly concerned with posting to maintain your reach. Okay, that is how the thing works. Yeah. And so effectively, and again, the more you post and so on and so forth, the more data is being accrued by the companies that own the platforms that you're using. All right. So I'm thinking, you know, Yanis is speaking now, and I'm thinking, yeah, that's a serious context to be existing in, because effectively they have created a situation in which using social media is a form of labor. Again, and you have to maintain a certain level of engagement for even the benefits of what's the word? Having eyes on your content to be maintained. So is our use of social media a form of free labor? Are we free laborers for techno-feudalists? Yeah, is the meditation when we're upon right now. Yeah. And obviously from an African nationalist perspective, a Black Power perspective, this would require us to develop our own platforms. Yeah. With our own intentionality in mind. And I've said this before, I've said it a number of times over the last few weeks. We cannot get comfortable on YouTube. All right. There's a utility in it and so on. But ultimately, yeah, I'm a Garveyite, right? So if my goals are to be successful, my use of these platforms at some point has to become null and void, surplus to requirement, and in some ways a detriment to my overall goals. At some point, me using YouTube and Instagram and TikTok and X, formerly known as Twitter, is actually contrary to the forward development of my overall vision. Right now, it's just a contradiction. Yeah, in terms of what man's cultural, political, and social ideals are. Yes. In terms of what man's economic ideals are. It's just a contradiction. At some point, it's going to become a hindrance. Yeah. I'm hoping to understand where me I say. Open up the lines, family. I'm opening up the lines. Yeah, I'm opening up the lines. So feel free to come through the conversation. I'm sure the link is pinned to the top of the chat. The link is pinned to the top of the chat. Feel free to click that link if you want to come live and share your thoughts, feelings, ideas. It's up to you. Now, you can speak on what I'm speaking on. You could raise your own topic. And if you are coming to speak on what I'm speaking on, feel free to raise anything else that stood out in what we was watching, a question that I may not have asked, an idea that I may not have considered. Maybe you've watched the whole interview. Maybe you read the book, the whole of the book that don't read already. By the way, the book is called Techno-feudalism, What Killed Capitalism. And we have, if one man can save capitalism, brothers and sisters, it's the man who was dutifully click the link. He's been quiet since Mosiah. We're not here from Coffee Campbell since Mosiah. Quiet. There. Yeah. So if there's one man that can save capitalism from being killed by techno-feudalism, it's Coffee Campbell. So greetings, Coffee Campbell.
Yeah, greetings. Wow.
Greetings. And what wait there, Coffee. I'm gonna bring on a man who we normally know as MA, but this time he's known as AM. Yeah, in reverse the thing. Yeah, in reverse the thing. So greetings, brother AM. You know what I'm saying?
Brother ShakaRa. Yeah, man. Greetings, Kofi.
Yeah, man. Respect.
Yeah, man.
You decided to show your face today.
Yeah,
rather than just the voice. You know. Yeah. By the way, brothers and sisters, brother AM has the voice that the ladies them love. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? What the girls them should know when it comes to the vocals and everything.
Yeah, you know, the Barry White voice.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man.
Listen, I'm taking off the great ShakaRa. You know, the wife is looking. All right, Kofi, go through. I'll be back in a second. Yeah.
Wait, I'll get him out of trouble. Yeah, I'll get him out. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Are you on that side? All right. So in order of by the way, so the brothers have come through, family. Feel free to come through yourself. Yeah, click the link, and or type in the chat. Now, if you do type in the chat, you have to at gotkushTV. Manado, read your comment if you're not at gotkushTV. Okay, and that is because a lot of conversation takes place between brothers and sisters in the chat, and that's fine. It's beautiful. We want that, ZIVANAYI. That's the whole principle. But if you want me to read your comment and or question, please at gotkushTV, and I'll be glad to do so. Coffee Campbell, go on through.
Yeah, man, respect. Yeah, as I caught a little piece of the end part of what the brother was saying. I don't know who that brother is. Who in bed?
Oh, I thought you would you know this guy. So his name is Yanis Varoufakis. He is a university lecturer. He's a self-defined socialist. He is also he was also briefly the Minister of Finance, I believe, for Greece. He's from Greece. When basically they were trying to deal with the effects of their economy crashing. Yeah, and that's a whole nother subject for another time. But he was, I think, for about 5 months, he was the Minister of Finance before resigning because basically the political establishment were not in line with what he was trying to do as far as not receiving any more loans and them kind of things. There, I think he's written a book on that subject as well. But that's another subject for another time. Yeah, but he's an economist basically, and a politician and a lecturer, an intellectual, public intellectual.
Okay, well that makes sense then. Cause the last part of my catch really sound like Marxism, you know, the whole confusing serfdom and capitalism and the feudal lord and the capitalist and all of that. You know, it really sound like that. But
no, yeah, I think you misunderstood. Finish, but I think you misunderstood what he was saying. Because you did say that you didn't hear. You only heard the last part of what he was saying.
Right. Yeah, just the last part here still.
Yeah, so at the beginning of what he was saying, he went through the transition from feudalism to capitalism. Yeah, what he's arguing is that the technocracy of today is creating a new form of feudalism coming out of the capitalist mode. So the capitalists themselves have created this technocracy, which he's referring to techno-feudalism. Which he's referring to as techno-feudalism. So he's not confusing capitalists with although one could debate whether that's conflation or not. But what he's actually saying is that the present day capitalists who have created these technological platforms have created a new form of feudalism in that respect.
Yeah, I mean, most people familiar with that argument now, especially when there's more censorship on these platforms, you know, so people refer to them as feudalists or censoring speech, and you know, calling for the government to act, assuming that these platforms are not acting on behalf of government anyway, you know. So yeah, I'm familiar with that that framing, but the brother asked him about the voluntary nature of the contract, and again, probably because he's a socialist, he does dismiss that and say, yeah, it not really matter, you know, him want to go on Facebook. It's like him giving an impression that if you want to go on a platform, you should have a right to dictate how that platform either pay you or don't pay you, or you know, how that platform interact with you. I mean, the man make a point and say you can leave anytime, and then he come up with this bizarre phrase called voluntary serfdom, which is really an insult to actual serfs or actual slaves, you know what I mean? But you are saying that the on social media now don't really jive with your mission as a Garveyite or a black nationalist. Why?
Yeah. No,
why did you come to that conclusion? Yeah.
Because from a Garveyite perspective, we are about the ownership and control of our own institutions in our own interests. Yeah. And so with the best intention in the world, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and all of those things can never be, and success on those platforms can never be our ultimate goal. They can only be a means within a certain context to a particular end. Because African people do not own these platforms and they don't act in our interest.
Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, the alt-right will say the same things, that these platforms don't act in their interest because it's censoring them, you know what I mean? But I mean, just like the roads, you can use the roads to spread your message. Like, oh, yeah, they use the roads to spread a message, or the cable to spread a message. I mean, they're still using a platform to spread a message that you think have value, and obviously other people have value to them watch and then like and subscribe, etc. You know what I mean?
So remember what I said was that at the moment it's a contradiction, yeah, and an understandable contradiction. At some point it will become a hindrance, yeah. So Garvey and Garveyism is about the ownership of means of production with the hands of African people towards producing and towards meeting the needs of African people in every area of people activity. Yeah. So to the extent that that Facebook and YouTube and so on are owned by white capitalists who are allegiant to the Western imperial project, this cannot be an end goal for anybody who's concerned with the ultimate and fully expressed vision of any kind of black power. That's the point I'm making.
Yeah. I mean, you want to own Facebook or whatever, but you right now you own the means of production. Your means of production, you own it.
That's false. And this is what's interesting about. Sorry. This is what.
Let me just explain. Yeah. You own the computer. You own all the inputs, right? And you own your labor. And
it's actually false. It's actually false. The computer that I'm.
Oh, when I finish, then I can repute it. Yeah, you own your own labor. Nobody's forcing you to come on the line. You're not a slave or a serf. That's just nonsense coming from socialists who don't understand capitalism. You own your labor. You own the means of production, the inputs, etc., the computer, the mic, etc., etc. And the capital that you get from it, that's yours. You might have to give over some to YouTube or whatever, and that's part of the contract. That's value exchange. That's the trader principle. You get something out of this thing, and YouTube get something out of it.
So I think part of the issue is that you haven't watched the whole interview. Okay, and part of it is that you are a capitalist, and so any kind of non-capitalist analysis is going to be questionable to you. At the same time, one of the things that was alluded to and said explicitly in the interview was that in relation to our use of social media platforms, they're free to use, and again, there's a certain level of because when we say things are free to use, right? There's a saying that comes from the Matrix, the Merovingian says this, where he says that choice is an illusion created between those who have power and those who have not, and
you believe it's an illusion? You don't believe in free will?
Sorry. Let me finish. Well, I mean, free will is a biblical concept. You know what I'm saying? I believe that choices take place within a context. Okay.
Yes.
And so when you understand the context in which choices are made, then you will understand the choices that are being and for what purpose and the extent to which the other options are available. So if you give me a limited amount,
you don't have free will, because we're all constrained.
If you give me a limited amount of options, and ask me to choose, and I choose, effectively, I have made a choice, right? But the options available to me are limited.
You have made the best choice of the limited choices you have.
Right, and that's the point. So the choices that I have is the context, right? So when we talk about the fact that all of us, by use of a mobile phone, now just to communicate, we require one of these things, and it's so many. You
can use something else.
You can, but the options again.
But it's more efficient.
Again, the options that are available. Yes, especially for example, if I'm trying to build a media platform, there are certain options that are available to me. Yes, that are more effective within the context that I'm existing in. That may be limiting in terms of what my ultimate goals are, but I understand the context that I'm existing within. Right. So we are using technology at the moment, and through our use of technology, we are the idea is that we are constantly working. Yes. For the owners of the platforms that we use, when we go sleep, when we are walking down the road, every time we take Uber, every time we use Google Maps, this is
and we use them because we get value from them.
Sorry. This is producing capital for the people who own these platforms
and the users too.
And so our use of the platform is a form of labor. That is the idea. Yes, that produces capital for other people who are able to pay rent on people who own these platforms, whilst the people who are doing the labor do not get paid for that work. And so this creates
that's not really true, Shaka. Come on.
Sorry. Let me finish. This creates a particular kind of effect within the economic system that produces a new kind of mode of production that Yanis is arguing is a definitive shift in the economic system itself. That's the argument that is being made.
Yes, socialists always look on one side of the transaction and then conclude that, well, it's exploitation. But the transaction in a market economy is mutually beneficial.
It's not mutually beneficial. Sorry.
Well, all right, look.
It's mutually beneficial. Go ahead.
Yeah. So if the only reason why we talking now and we keep talking even though we disagree is because you see benefit in this reasoning and me see benefit in this reasoning. You understand? You might not agree with me and I might not agree with you, but we still see benefit. It's the same thing with the capitalist and the worker, right?
You are aware of that.
Meloman can say, look, it's a really crappy situation that people have to work in sweatshop factories, right? But not taking it into account the fact that those workers are choosing the best option available to them. Because if you take away that option, what do you have to give them? Normally in Jamaica, then the curse, Siaga, that 80 cent bring sweatshop, etc. and them basically run the sweatshop them way, right? When the PMP they come back. But then again, I mean, you still have the problem of unemployment or underemployment. You understand? You still have the problem of people wiping car glass at the street light. You still have the problem of people having to hustle at the corner, etc. You understand? So you never really make them life any better by taking away the option that they would have chosen.
Again, it's not, but you're saying that's what they would have chosen. Anyway, that the subject of
because people are going there.
The subject of the free zones in Jamaica is a total next story. But to the central point, the idea. Excuse me. The idea that you only give people an underpaying job and say the people chose the best option that was available to them, as though
no, that's not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying. Let me just
having a living wage is not an option. Right?
No, I didn't say that. I didn't say that.
Not to that degree is not an option. So they have to choose. That idea is actually sick. Like it's
When Marcus Garvey said,
one second, coffee. I'm gonna come back to you. Hold your Marcus Garvey point because I do want to get to our brothers and sisters on the panel. So AM got through.
Yeah, boy.
Barry White.
Girls, them sugar.
Do you know what? I behave yourself. You know, I only just I know Yanis. Yeah, I know of his work and that, especially with the downturn in Greece. I started kind of listening to some of his analysis and that, but I haven't read this one. I've just got it up on the screen. I need to go into it properly, but on the back of what some of the stuff that Kofi's saying, like the option, like really and truly is globalization that forces people to follow suit, and this new mode of the new modes of message delivery, right? Being that someone in Russia can reach someone in the Gambia at the click of a button, right? Mm-hmm. And then those with the most resources can embolden their message like no others can, right? And it puts a pressure on the rest of us. The fact that we're on here talking now and ShakaRa has been forced, he's been forced to build to build a platform and also be associated with a platform that is trying to counteract these messages is what we're really talking about as well, you know, because if he didn't have to, he probably wouldn't. Yeah, as he's already stated, his Garveyite position dictates that he shouldn't even really be on these platforms, and neither should I. Neither should you, Kofi, but you're gonna be anyway, innit? But
is that medium?
You have to take surely 1 second. Surely we have to take into consideration that it's imperialism and globalization and this thirst for the manipulation of the minds of the people all over the world, especially Black people, that has steered us. Has even steered you into this idea that we must make a choice of any kind that we haven't manufactured for ourselves.
And this is the point. So really, like I said, what even this conversation that we're having now being transmitted through the platforms that we're using is a contradiction. It's an understandable contradiction within the context, right? But it's still a contradiction, and we have to understand that. Yeah. At the same time, our existence here, is what allows YouTube. No, let me say it another way. The reason why we use these platforms is because our people are very much on these platforms, right? So in order to access our people, we have to go where our people are at. Yes. At the same time, by that reality creates another reality, which is the fact that we are actually laboring, producing content for platforms. Yeah. So when Yanis says that Bezos produces nothing, but the producers who sell through his, right? He doesn't. Nothing that is sold. Sorry, nothing that is.
Shareholders?
Sorry, nothing that is sold on Amazon is produced by Jeff Bezos.
Okay. Why would shareholders?
Yet he amasses 40% of the value of everything that is sold.
Why would shareholders be paying him that much money if they didn't say value?
Is the point. So you have sacralized shareholders as though.
So him hold a gun to them head and say, yo, give me how much $1 billion?
Excuse me. The question that you're asking kind of presupposes the idea that satisfying shareholder interest is the only way to run a platform.
So
and it is
who
not.
own the business?
Sorry. This is the point, right? So the capitalist interest is to keep our thinking locked into a select few options. Yes, that we think and satisfy ourselves are the only options. Yeah, so that we never see anything or envision anything or work to anything beyond our current circumstance. This is the trick.
So that's not really
right.
Yeah,
This was a trick that has been played throughout history, particularly our post-colonial history as African people, and they act as though what becomes most viable is a simple matter of what people are most inclined towards. Just using my TikTok example, yeah, that I was given at the end of the interview. Literally, I was using TikTok, yeah, and you know the platform that my profile on that was rising fast. But then there's a geopolitical reality that says, you know what, we have to lock down the use of Twitter in the Western world because we are in a trade war with China. Yes, the free market never stopped them from affecting people's views and engagement on Twitter. They are literally, yeah, as a part of their trade war with China, affecting the algorithm and its usage in the Western world. Yeah, literally. That's about right now.
So the free market would.
Yeah, we're saying we can't the free market dictates it. Yeah.
Let me throw something in quickly. Let me throw something in really quickly, Kofi. So you don't have a problem with YouTube when you think that the transaction is mutual, yeah? Do you feel the same way about TikTok?
A problem? No, hold on. It's not that I don't have a problem with these platforms, because obviously the censorship I don't agree with. But I'm saying that voluntary trade is mutually beneficial, right? All
right, cool. That's the argument. That's your argument. Yeah, okay. I'm saying, do you feel the same way about TikTok? Just quick answer, yes or no?
I don't use TikTok. It's too young for me. I don't know the first thing about
okay, in theory, there are people older than you on there, you know. There's enough people older than you on there. But in theory, yeah.
Grandpa.
You don't understand. In theory, yeah, it can't be any more or any less kind of controlled than YouTube, right, Kofi?
Yeah. I think the Chinese government own it or something like that.
Okay, well, so that's why I'm asking. So back to the question again. Do you think that is as equal a mutual?
Sorry, AM. Just a case in point. The American government actually owned the internet that we all use. They literally own the internet.
That's a myth. That's a myth for another.
The American government literally owns the internet. That's not a myth. When there are times when a website will be shut down, and when the website shut down, you will see the American government seal on it. Yeah? When you look at who owns the internet, yeah, it's the American government. The keys to this whole World Wide Web. That's why that's why you can't get the internet in the same way in China, because they know it's American intelligence. Yeah.
All right.
That's why
the entire infrastructure.
What's the question you was asking, Mario?
Sorry, go on, Kofi.
Like,
no, you were saying about what were you saying about TikTok? I didn't get the.
I'm saying that even the U.S. government understand that TikTok is essentially a Chinese governmental psyop. Yeah, essentially. Yeah. And there's many articles, and I'm sure there's a few documentaries to kind of elucidate on that point. And I'm saying, if they know that, then surely someone on the ground like yourself or myself, in accepting that type of information, will then also accept that the exchange is not mutually beneficial in terms of Chinese interests.
Because you can say You can see value in whatever TikTok. I don't watch TikTok, but I can see value in YouTube, even though YouTube is heavily influenced, allegedly, by the US government. You understand?
Right.
So
Right.
look, effective communication tools, right? Governments are always going to want to control it. You understand? That's a constraint that we just have to live with. We can try and mitigate it as much as possible, which is what capitalism does, which is
What we're doing, right?
Huh?
But that's what we're doing. The argument
Right,
isn't,
that's what I'm saying.
the argument ain't about, sorry, Kofi, that we're on here talking. So clearly the argument isn't about whether once given the options, we're going to try and choose the best option. That's not the argument being made. The argument is about what options are put in place in the first place and whether you're right. Okay.
Sure, but then if you're gonna say, all right, the options that third world countries like Jamaica in the 80s had was really crappy and it shouldn't be because it's exploitative. We need better options. I'm saying that those who did put forward those better options never give poor people the better options. You understand? Them take away the best option available at the time and then leave poor people with nothing, which goes back to the quote I was making about Garvey, right? Every nation go through the sweatshop phase, yeah, whether it's America, Britain, or Hong Kong or Singapore, yeah. That is how you build up. You work up the capital, you work up technological transfer, capital accumulation, know-how, etc. And then you work your way up, right? Singapore and Hong Kong never just spring up with skyscrapers, just so. And Garvey did always say to the Negro, because the Negro used to laugh after Garvey and tugboat then, right? I said, Garvey don't know anything about business because he's some like a tugboat in buy and ray. Yeah? But Garvey said, yo, the Negro is a fool. The Negro look on Sears department store and say that's how he want to start out. But the Negro don't know nothing about business. Because you don't start out that way. You have to start out from the bottom. Or if you're not a beneficiary of inherited wealth, you have to start out somewhere. You understand? And that is the basic argument that was made.
Yeah. So first and foremost, when it comes to the point about Garvey, I'm going to come to you, African wealth. Yeah. When it comes to the point about Garvey begins activism and in many ways ends his activism with encouraging laborers and leading laborers in strikes, yeah, against employers. Okay, so Garvey was never
That's
about
not a contradiction.
Sorry, exactly. But so
that's not a contradiction for capitalism. As long as you have unions or voluntary associations, so what?
No, but capitalist societies, corporations, and governments tend to spend a significant amount of time trying to break unions, and the capitalists that were around.
The thing is,
the capitalists that were around during Garvey's time were certainly not amenable to his unionizing of workers and advocating on their behalf. Yeah, they spent a lot of time trying to break the Garveyite and Garvey influenced unions. So the idea of equating Garvey saying that we have to start from the bottom, yes, which is true. It's a nation building effort, right?
I admit no. So sweatshops needed there. Sweatshops were necessary.
The equating of that principle with sweatshops is a complete misrepresentation of Garveyism. If Garvey was satisfied with the sweatshop liberty,
I never said satisfied with sweatshops. I say you start out.
But Garvey never told African people to start out with sweatshops. You will not find that anywhere.
Is the principle. I'm not talking. No. You look on it too literal.
You will not find that anywhere in Garveyism, even alluded to. It doesn't exist. Yeah, Garvey never said.
Is not the literal sweatshops.
Look at the program for the People's Political Party in Jamaica. You will find for which the Jamaican colonial government of the time imprisoned the man because he was challenging the geopolitical and economic order that existed in Jamaica at the time. That was, in fact, using the island as a national sweatshop for the sake of developing capital for the British colonizers. Literally, that's what was going on. And
All
Papa
right,
Garvey
so
was challenging.
Garvey, yeah. All right, so
That's a fact.
like I said, voluntary unions are voluntary associations, and that's not a contradiction in capitalism or Garvey. The mere fact that Garvey, hold on, let me finish the operation. Let me done no one. The mere fact that Garvey was agitating for the workers is not a contradiction, because liberalism advocates for free association and free bargaining. However, where liberalism stops and socialism and Marxism begins is when the laborers use violence to prevent capitalists from hiring somebody else. Because you can make a case, for better wages. The workers can strike and cripple the capitalist and force him on, which has happened before, right? But if you take away the right of the capitalist to disassociate with you and associate with other people, now that is Marxism, and that was not what Garvey was advocating, or he would not have told the workers.
Wow.
He would not have told the black workers in America to undercut the white laborers in America. So he's saying use the market economy. It's not perfect. It bad, it's savage, it's wicked, blah blah blah. But it's what you have, and use it to your advantage. And this is why when the labor riots throughout the Caribbean in the 30s, Garvey was not on board with those labor riots, because that was the beginning of socialism. And even the socialists at the time said Garvey was too tepid in his criticism of what was going on. You understand? Because what they wanted was use of violence to force the hand of the capitalists. And Garvey was saying essentially by not supporting the socialists that this is going to backfire. And as in words come to pass, because that form of unionism has been a failure in the first world and especially in the developing world, where the use of violence as a tool as a bargaining tool hurt workers more than it helped them. Does that make sense?
African wealth. I'm going to come to you now, just to make two quick points here. The first thing is that it's amazing to me that in discussing Garvey, who was operating under colonial circumstances, which were inherently violent, that the burden of acting in violent ways, is being put on workers, reacting
that
and responding.
Contradict nothing when I say. That no contradict nothing when I say.
Excuse me. Thank you very much. Because the idea that where the workers using violence takes it out of the context of the fact that the workers are existing in a state of violence in the first place anyway. All right. So this is essential point. Colonialism uses violence to subjugate labor in its system to its dictates. The idea that Garvey, who created a paramilitary force, within the UNIA, who was openly and actively.
Why did the socialists say he was too soft? In the 30s. Why did they say that?
Who openly advocated for laborers to arm themselves, against the violence.
Self-defense. That's different from union violence.
But defense from what? Then that would imply violence, right?
No, comrade Yellow Man. Exactly. No, comrade Yellow Man. You don't have a right to force the capitalists to pay you what.
Excuse me, thank you very much. Secondly, on the point about I'm just correcting some of the Garvey points, right? On the point about
no. You're not correct. No. Pure non-sequitur you're coming.
And undercutting the white workers. Papa Garvey did advocate the undercutting of the white workers. He advocated the undercutting of the white workers because he understood the current positioning of African people at the time, and it wasn't to do with let's just utilize the free market. What
is that? Undercutting. Excuse me. Scabs do what?
Excuse me, thank you very much. In his own words, Papa Garvey said the white capitalist is in it for his own interest and through his own greed. And through his own greed. It's the greed of It's the greed of the white capitalist that Papa Garvey was using to undercut the white worker, because the white worker
so what?
does not have the interest of the African worker at heart. It's a very different idea. We're not advocating.
How is it different? How is it different? If you're gonna use the system,
I'll tell you why.
to your advantage.
I'll tell you why. Sorry, I'll tell you why. Because the use of the system was not the ultimate goal of Garveyism. Garvey was.
So? Again, I'm non sequitur.
Excuse me. Thank you.
Star.
Garvey was advocating the free market. Garvey was advocating strategy of African laborers within that context. The ultimate goal is us to be the owners and developers and producers of our own things. Yes, and so this is
the ultimate goal was what? Was what? A socialist society? What? Excuse me.
Developers of our own things. That's the ultimate goal. All right.
Who is us? The workers are the capitalists.
So it's like, for example, saying, well, right now we're there on
answer the question.
Yeah? And the YouTube that we're there on.
Who is us? Workers, because if you say workers, you're a socialist. Are you saying, Garvey?
Again, the YouTube that we're there on is a contradiction if we put it in the context of our ultimate goals. For Garvey, Africans working for white people was a contradiction. Free market or no free market, us working for white people is a contradiction. That's Garveyism. Okay. So the idea.
So what?
Wait, no, because you're not a Garvey, you will say so what? Because
so you going to tell black people, you going to tell black people don't work for white people? That's what you're going to tell them? You have anything to replace that?
Coffee.
You have jobs for them.
Coffee. You're more intelligent than the statement that you just made, so I'm not even going to bother.
So why you say working for white man is a contradiction? So what?
We're going to move on. We're going to move on. African wealth.
Oh yeah. Bless up everyone. So it's econ time again. I never got to see all of the video, but from what I pieced together, the interesting part I heard was when he was talking about, say, for instance, the Google Maps and the fact that they kind of generate wealth without our participation, just the pinging of the cell towers
so
and stuff.
Use it then?
Wait, let me. You don't even know what I'm saying. So I'm saying is that was very interesting. I'm trying to say it's interesting. So I'm saying it's an interesting thing where you're saying it's different than how wealth would be accumulated through labor. So I found that to be interesting, right? I'm not an economist. I'm just saying that was interesting. But I need to watch the rest of it. But another thing now I wrote down was Kofi said, why would the shareholders on Amazon pay Bezos or whoever, like all the money that he gets, right? But what I really found interesting, and I've been thinking about this for a time, is the concept of a shareholder itself and how that works. Is that if you consider, like, say, me and you go into an agreement and I say, I give you $100 and you'll be able to return it to me double. So I give you $100, I invest it in something you're doing, and you promise you give me back $200. Like, I don't keep getting $200 every month, right? Because I gave you $100 to do what you did, right? But with the case of a shareholder, or the concept of a shareholder, it's a similar case where I give you $100 at the start of your business, and that gives me entitlement now to collect $200 every month, even though I've not done anything more or even given you any more money. You see what I'm saying? So I think the concept of a shareholder itself is something that I've always found interesting.
So
and how that works.
This is finance. How should they be financed?
Wait, I'm not. Wait. One quick thing. One more thing I wanted to say. I don't want to get into an argument where economics is equated to capitalism. Hold on, bro. I'm just saying economics is not capitalism, right? So I don't know how you argue econ.
You don't have an alternative, but you just.
I don't know I just don't even know what you're saying, how it's related to what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is I'm not going to argue with you as if economics is capitalism, right? There's economics and then there's capitalism. But I was just saying the concept of a shareholder itself is something I found kind of weird. I don't say it could be different, maybe, you know?
How? Explain to us.
Certainly. All on there. Tai 313.
How you brothers doing?
Greetings. We're good.
I had one question before I said anything. I don't know if I came in late, but are y'all? I want to know the subject before I speak on it. Are y'all speaking on Garveyism versus socialism, or what is?
No, not necessarily. I mean, that's that we can always talk about Garveyism, and it's an open house, so you can feel free to raise the points that you want to raise based upon what we've been discussing. Where we started the conversation was with well, the question was, is social media free labor? And we was looking at an interview by a Greek public intellectual called Yanis Varoufakis, who's written a book called Techno-feudalism, What Killed Capitalism. Yeah. And he's breaking down this idea that we now exist in a techno-feudal society. Right? For, you have to watch the interview and hear his breakdown to understand that. So based upon that, we've been discussing the extent to which that's the case, like our use of social media, particularly as African people, and our ultimate goals coming from a Pan-African perspective, and because I'm a Garveyite, particularly a Garveyite perspective, the extent to which that's a contradiction, and the extent to which that becomes a hindrance for achieving our ultimate goals, even though it's understandable in terms of the present condition of our people. So coming out of that, talking points and discussions around Garveyism and economics and obviously socialism. The guy Yanis is a self-defined socialist, by the way, and so yeah, so that comes into it. Those things come into it. But if you feel free to make whatever statement that you want to make, and we'll know how to place it in the conversation.
All right. So one thing I want to ask the socialist is his idea of what is his idea of gaining capital or starting capital in a capitalist society if we don't gain control of anything here? Like, what does he want us to do? Just while there's no socialist systems working I'm saying that's in the United States, like, or elsewhere, Western countries, if they are fully capitalist countries, do he not want us to gain any power in these or self-control in these? I don't understand. What is his?
Who are you directing your question at?
I don't know his name. The one who kept yelling or who couldn't wait.
If you refer to him as a socialist, he's going to scream and combust. Yeah, brother Coffee is.
Brother Coffee talking.
Yeah. You sound like a socialist, apparently, brother Coffee. You know, it's
Oh, he's not a socialist, so I might have misunderstood him.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you definitely misunderstood. Brother Coffee is an ardent free market capitalist. He vacillates between classical what's the word, liberalism and neoliberalism, depending on the day.
Direct that question to Mellerman. He was saying that the current system of financing is not to his liking. It's not fair enough. So he should be able to tell us what is the fair.
Wait, that's not what I was saying. I was
from a Garveyite perspective.
So you talk about socialists for. I don't mean socialist.
Sorry, let me answer Tai 313's question from a Garveyite perspective. Yeah, who is critical of socialism and critical of capitalism. All right. The idea is that yes, at whatever stage of development that we are at, we must take control of whatever we can take control of, as far as labor, as far as wealth, as far as resources. Okay, and as much as possible, we collectivize our efforts in that regard. Yeah. The point, however, is that replicating the geopolitical and economic system of imperialist Europe cannot be our goal and or our intention, and the limitations of the economic and political
Careful how
system.
you use that. Careful how you say that, because socialists then go and say, well, Garvey was an imperialist because Garvey dressed up like an imperialist and talk about imperialists.
And if and when the socialists come and say that, then we'll have that discussion with them. All right. I'm just answering the brother's question. Yeah. So no, it's not that we are, and I'm sure even most socialists would well, some would, but I mean I'm sure most socialists wouldn't say that. It's just that we have to be careful in terms of understanding the exploitative nature of the economic system that we live in, so as not to replicate that among our own people.
So as a socialist, Shaka, what is the alternative financing system that you think would best serve the needs of a collective?
So again, and I think you know this, but just rephrase the premise of your question, because it doesn't apply to me.
Oh, okay. As somebody who admires socialist leaders and their governments, who claims to be a Garveyite, mixing it up with Marxism, what would be your alternative method of financing? Because Garvey was clear, it was the same method as financing in capitalist system, which has been thus far the most, which has been thus far.
Before I answer your question, please substantiate your claim.
That what?
That Garveyism, or that Garvey, that Garveyism, Garvey, or the UNIA ACL advocated the same mode of production and process of development.
Yeah, they sold shares and they wanted to create businesses and industry. Yeah. So what? Yeah. They wanted to create.
To substantiate your point, the selling of shares is not substantiating. Yeah.
Why?
The government did sell shares, and it sold its shares at a price whereby the masses of the people could get involved. It also capped the number of shares that any individual could own. And so forth. So that would be,
I'm laugh because
contrary.
People like
that would be contrary. Excuse me. That would be contrary, and opposed to the methods that were used by the capitalists who developed America.
I'm laugh because Garveyites like you of the socialist variety, they always walking this tightrope. Them always at pains to show that no, Garvey wasn't really a capitalist, He was more like Maurice Bishop, and he was more like Kwame Nkrumah. He didn't really sell shares to make profit.
Coffee. That may be the case. Maybe I am walking a tightrope. Yeah, and the nature
that's why
of
come out and say, capitalism because that's the best system available.
The nature of liberation, right, definitely requires us to walk tightrope sometimes. Me walking a tightrope, however, is inconsequential to whether you can substantiate the claim that you made.
As I said before, Garvey's goal was to build businesses and promote entrepreneurship and industry among Black people and self-help, right? So, and to raise money, he used the same capitalist methods of persuasion and voluntary exchange. This is different from how socialists finance their programs. They finance their programs through the government, through the use of force. You understand?
You know why that's force? Because not all socialists have governments.
Yeah, that's false. That's totally false.
Which one?
Why? Where did force come in? Like what?
Hey, sorry. Right. So we're arguing, and just like the Gahu movement developed a government in exile because it didn't have custodianship of land at the time for building a nation. Okay, so you have just said,
so what?
Again, you have made a statement without substantiating your claim. You have made a claim that Garvey followed a capitalist model for fundraising and development akin to America.
Nobody bought into this point. No. Just because you want to please the socialists, then. Everybody who read Garvey know what I'm talking about. I don't know why you believe in this point. I really don't know why you're doing it.
Coffee. If you are unable to substantiate the claim at this moment, that's fine.
I answered already. You just saying I'm unable. Don't make it so. I answered already.
No, but you haven't. You stated something without
All right,
without any.
Pretend like you don't know what I'm talking about. Pretend like you don't know.
Sorry. The difference between what I have said and what you have said is I've actually given you the actual specifics of the shareholding policies of the UNIA ACO. Okay.
Yeah. So what? And that's not capitalistic.
All you have said is that they sold shares.
And let me go again.
Sorry. And then likened the selling of shares to American capital,
right? Which is capitalist. Good. Right. Good. So the voluntary. Yeah. What differentiates the capitalist financing from other serfs and feudalism is the voluntary nature of the financing, right? So Gavin never hold a gun to nobody and say you have to finance these capitalist ventures.
I think this is a problem with defining.
Comrade Junior. The voluntary nature of it is what makes it in the mode of the capitalist method of financing. Now you telling me, well, Gavin sold it to poor people based on how much they can afford. It wasn't like a fixed price or such, that don't mean nothing. You understand? Gavin said,
of course, that means something. That means something. The profit motive. The profit motive. Profit.
All right. So
it's a very
profit, my brother.
Sorry. The free market.
Let me finish. No, Shaka. Hold on. Let me done. I don't finish yet.
Finish. All right, finish, and then we're gonna go on to Imhotep. I'm not even gonna respond. Go ahead.
So for the socialists who don't read Garvey, read where Garvey said people go into business for profit. They don't go in there to play. You understand? That was in the message for the people. Garvey had learned lessons, and that's in the title of another book by Robert E. Lessons, Life and Lessons of Marcus Garvey. So he learned that selling shares one way is not viable or was not viable. So he was telling people later on, say, yo, you have to put the profit motive at the center, because he thought that he could have used the capitalist system in a kind of altruistic way. Understand? But if you do that, you're not going to remain viable and you're not going to remain competitive, because that's just the reality of the situation. So Melaman, go and go read Garvey.
But you just contradicted yourself. Didn't you just contradict yourself? Because ShakaRa's point is that that's not what he was doing, how he had sold the shares. It wasn't like he was trying to maximize profit. That wasn't the motive.
So later when him said,
the fundamental point, and the UNIA ACO never shifted from this model.
So what Garvey did mean by that?
The fundamental point is that the capitalist development, as far as America and Britain are concerned, is not replicated by the UNIA simply because they sold shares. Rockefeller.
That's not what I said. That's not what I said. Simply because they sold shares. I said they promoted entrepreneurship.
Sorry, excuse me. There was no limitation, yes, as far as who can own how many ever amount of shares. The development of America, and Britain in the capitalist mode of production was fundamentally did fundamentally involve force, in terms of forced labor, in terms of in terms of the forced destruction of certain potential markets to make way for British and American.
No, man, it's a forced labor. Forced labor. Yeah. How is the forced labor again?
Are you seriously asking me?
Yes. How the capitalist force you to work for him?
Wow.
No. Wow. How does the capitalist force you to work for him?
He threatened not having someone to live.
Under the leadership of Marcus Garvey, everywhere that there was majority black people, we were under colonization. Colonization is an act of force, and the extraction.
That's not the question I asked you. I said, how?
Excuse me.
You can't run away from history.
Exactly. Excuse me. Thank you.
extraction
of
meaningless slogans.
The extraction of labor and resources for the benefit of capitalists.
That's not what. That's not what.
Nation states. They come quite literally. Yeah. The United Fruit Company, today known as Chiquita, yes, was used as an arm of the American government.
Thank you. Thank you. That's how they do it. Through what?
They invaded nations and destroyed land and economies for the sake of amassing profits for themselves.
Right. And that is how they can force you to work for them through the government. That's not capitalism.
Well, the reality is that's the point. So we went through a whole. Hold on. We went through a whole thing where it was capitalism, right? The labor under capitalism. Hold on a second. It was free market a minute ago, and now it's not. It's not capitalism anymore.
No, it's free market if the government don't force you to only work for somebody else.
Well, this is the trick, right? Because
that's the constraints we're talking about.
You mentioned that the American system was the free market capitalist system, and now when it's
at that time it was the free system.
The American system was built off of forced labor. The British system was built off of.
No, it was not. No, it was not.
Yes, that's not.
Well, explain to me, how does a capitalist force you to work for them?
Set him up.
From America. What? He crazy if he said it's not built off that.
Total madness.
From America don't mean nothing, my youth.
Total madness, the bridging attack right here now. Yeah, because we're talking about colonialism. What is colonialism? Yeah, and what was the role?
I'm not talking colonialism. You are talking colonialism. I'm talking capitalism.
Because colonialism is an inconvenient dimension to the history of the thing. So you're not going to talk about colonialism.
No, it's not.
No.
You don't want to identify colonialism as inherently capitalist in its nature. Yeah.
If colonialism is inherently capitalist, when did colonialism start? When did colonialism start?
Somehow Britain during the 1920s, can be colonialist and capitalist, but their colonialism has nothing to do with their capitalism. Yeah.
No, it doesn't. Because if you don't say colonialism, if you're going to say
existing your delusion. Set it.
Peace and Pan-African power. Everybody under the sound of my voice. I hope I can be clearly heard.
Yes, I feel like you're trying to steal the voice for the ladies from AM right about now.
Well, you can't do it tonight. He buys to speak.
I try to teach the tackle from AM right about now.
After the brother speak,
talk hello to all the lovely ladies.
Just a teasing. Got you.
So I actually didn't plan to come on the live today. I was supposed to be studying, but I was listening in any case. I actually came on with a sincere request as an audience member, right? Brother Coffee, can you hear me clearly?
Yo, no matter go like say me, you want to shout to event. No matter do it now in a virgin, because you'll get me bring me, because you always do this. Go on like say me, you want to talk.
What happened to this brother? Coffee, shush no man.
Look, yeah. Try to start the flow of the free market right now, make the brethren talk. Free speech. All
right.
Yeah, try to sense of the brethren. Yeah, the capitalist mentality. Go on, choose it, what it.
So, Brother Coffee, when I'm listening in on YouTube, right, your mic is quite loud, which is not actually a problem. But when you're interrupting, when the Brother ShakaRa is speaking, it makes it very difficult to hear what either of you are saying. It's very cacophonous, and it's a little bit upsetting. At that point, we can't hear or understand what anyone is saying, so it's a lot of wasted time. You dig? So I want to beg.
So it's me one? And me one interrupt?
All right.
Yes, is you one. Is you one.
I will say this. I will say that we're gonna move on soon. I will say this. I think that everybody you know, is guilty of that in some way, shape, or form. I don't mind it to a certain degree, but I would argue that, my brother Coffee, you are an expert in the field, and a persistent perpetrator of the offense. Yeah, and so within reason, within reason, we can manage it. All right, within reason, we can manage it, and them thing there. It's not a big deal within reason, but you do tend to do it a lot. Yeah, and so I think that, you know, we kind of exercise self-discipline and choice in these matters, because when you exercise the choice to not interrupt, it's mutually beneficial to us all. And as a capitalist, I'm sure you should understand that mutual benefit dynamic. All right. So I'm gonna just say a couple of things here, and to bring it back to where I began the conversation. And brothers and sisters can feel free to, and if there's any sisters that want to come through as well, because, you know, me not like they're on too much man. You know, see it, yeah, and they're on too much man right now up on the panel. So we are encouraging the sisters them. I'm gonna close the show in about 15-20 minutes. Yeah. So we are encouraging the sister in them to come through, and don't feel obliged but feel welcome. But I'm sharing the link in the chat one more time, yeah, and all of these things. Okay,
if I could say one thing, brother Shaka.
Go ahead, Imhotep.
Examples
Can I get after
that
him?
brother Coffee brought to you regarding YouTube, right? I would see, well, and I think a big part of the problem is that he missed a lot of what the brother Giannis, well, I shouldn't call him the brother, but the cousin Giannis was saying, right?
My coffee brother still, you know. My coffee brother still, you know. So you have to just.
I'm sure.
No, boy, that's socialist, a fool, brother. A fool,
you know,
brother.
but anyway.
Channel 4 are your brother. Channel 4, yeah, go ahead.
I believe to him correctly, the cousin Giannis, that is, in brother Coffee's example, you would have been one of the capitalists paying rent to a techno-feudalist, as a content creator on YouTube, and we, the audience members, would be the ones who would be the voluntary serfs by creating the view capital, not for you necessarily, but for YouTube, because your views is what they use to sell to advertisers for them to make their money. You understand? 100. So the actual capital that is being generated by the website, as far as I understand it, is our views. So his example, like, I don't know if he told you stumped you, but it's like, again, a fundamental misunderstanding of the argument that was being made.
No, 100%.
No, that's not.
Sorry, and I think that where liberals always fall down is that they promote all this individual freedom thing, but the exception is when it comes to your labor and how you work and the profits that are accrued from your labor. Yeah. So we can have free will, free speech, free everything, and we should be individuals and work in our own interest. But when it comes to your labor, you should submit your interest to the capitalist, and whatever benefits the capitalist should be the most defining feature within the economic system. So this is why sweatshops become viable, because the sweatshop suits the capitalist agenda at a particular point in time, because they are able to get cheaper labor. Yeah, so this is why some of these capitalists, them love China, yeah, and they advocate China.
And how China benefit as a result? Did China not benefit?
Because China devalued its
labor.
Did
China benefit?
Right? Did
China benefit?
And because that was a benefit.
Yo, I don't know what answer that one.
He says without shame, while the American working class is suffering the effects of labor moving across. So how could you say just
that
thing?
That does not.
How could you say
does not
capital is benefiting China? Right? American capital is benefiting China at the same time as devaluing American labor. What are you saying?
That's not true. No, just because. Just because
I live in the Midwest, and they
if you're exploited, why you don't leave? Why you don't leave? Why you don't leave?
How are we gonna leave if you don't have a well-paying job to be able to save up and leave, bro? Stop saying stupid things, bro. Just stop saying you don't have to argue for stupid capitalist points. You don't have to do that, bro.
So this is the point, right?
If it's so bad, why everybody wants to go America? If it is so exploitative.
You moving again is in the interest of the capitalist. So what's defining here is not the interest of people, it's the interest of the capitalist.
So if you're being here, if ShakaRa, let me finish.
You just said that why do people want to move to
Excuse me, thank you. Right. So we're talking about a situation here in which African people are being asked to subordinate our collective interest to the interest of Western imperialist capitalists. Yeah, we are being asked to deny the idea and create some illusioning in our heads that the merchant business capitalist class within Western Europe and Western European nations somehow act in a realm totally distinct and devoid and divorced, from the governments in the Western capitalist imperialist realm, right? Hold a second, and therefore not act in our own interest, And so you notice now, I'm not even confining my argument to the argument of Yanis. Yes, the argument interests me as a utilizer of social media, and I looked at the extent to which the games that are being played geopolitically affect how our social media use is successful or not, and the fact that in order to maintain the success that we have on social media, it requires us, how it's built, the algorithms within it requires us to continue to produce so that we therefore produce capital in the form of data for the capitalist.
That's so oppressive.
That's an interesting dynamic, that we have to look at and that we have to assess. The question then becomes for the production, because when it comes to production and what comes back to you on the level of what you produce, the question then becomes, is the value of what you produced being replicated in what you receive for what you produce? That becomes the question. So when it comes to shareholders, their investment is considered to be valuable and therefore they must receive a return. When it comes to producers in terms of content, to what extent is the value of that returned to those producers? That becomes the question. And is that an important question to ask? And from an African-centered perspective, to what extent do we have to get it into our minds that our use of these platforms can only be a temporary means to an end at very best? At very best. To what extent should we accept this as a contradiction of the now and be working towards resolving that contradiction in the future, especially through our future generations? This is the question from a Garveyite Black nationalist Pan-Africanist perspective.
All right, so Imhotep.
Hold on. Enough. AM1 for talking. I'm not talking for you. Got you.
No. I'm just gonna say I concur. That's the question. All right. Go on, Kofi. I want to hear what rubbish you're gonna talk now.
Can I speak next?
Oh, you know, but you did say you want to speak. One second, Kofi. You did say you want to speak time for you. Go ahead.
I just wanted to say that I think that this conversation is really a conversation on definition, though, because I think that do y'all personally, let me ask y'all brothers first, do y'all think that any system or any way of that economic system will be the same with in African people's hands?
No, that depends on the collective. That depends on the collective will of African people. So it will be the same if we just simply follow America and Britain, Russia or China, India.
And that's right? My point. Because like y'all are saying, the brother was just saying that that's not truly capitalist when you was speaking about the colonialism and imperialism, but that's going on their definition or of capitalism and what it is and how it's going to be used. That's their definition is all I was trying to say. And
all right, I agree with you, my brother. I agree with you, and you will notice that even in the context of the conversation, what is and is not capitalism shifted and changed depending on what's convenient for the argument, right? So when it comes to the benefits and how Britain and America grew, somehow the profits that they accrued from colonialism didn't contribute to their capitalist development, which is absolutely ludicrous when you look at
5% and 2%.
The companies that are literally involved in the colonial project,
2% and 5%.
For example, when you look at what was taken, and we have to factor in the fact that these nation states and the companies, the multinational corporations that began to develop from them, did not develop isolated from each other. This was a pan-European project, which means that big capitalists in America and Britain had big investments in the Belgian Congo. Yes, that was exploiting African labor in the Congo under what firstly King Leopold II and then the Belgian state. Yeah. All right. But when you talk to these free market fundamentalists, somehow, yes, the capitalists that were funding a lot of this colonialism had nothing to do with the colonial project.
All right. So my turn to reply.
Can I chip in? Can I chip in though? Can I chip in real quick?
In Liberia, 1 second, and in South Africa, yes, the gold and the rubber and the uranium, yes, that they acquired from all of these places had nothing to do with capitalism. This is
so my turn now.
Yeah,
no, let me chip in.
Before
let me chip in real quick.
Can I finish my point?
But, sorry, Ty. I thought you were finished. I apologize. Ty, and then African Wealth, then Coffee. Go ahead, Ty.
I completely agree with everything you just said. That was my curiosity. Is that why do we have to be any tool that we use? Why does it have to be conformed in how do we use it in our benefit? Is my question to him. Why do we have to be conformed in a certain way? That's my first question. And my second question is, I just want to know if the brother have ever been to America and actually seen like how the state of America is and what the wealth disparities, because I'm pretty sure America is the biggest, has the biggest wealth disparity in any nation in the world. And I'm a person who lives and works in America. I don't know what he's talking about that we are benefiting by any of this, but we don't control any of the mode of production. Most people don't even. He'd say that everybody want to move to America. I don't know what you're talking about. Besides the propaganda of liberalism that America spreads across the world and showing that they like good to everybody. I don't know, but in America, it's not good for everybody, and that's just what I wanted to say. I don't understand why people from outside of America have this view that America is sunshine and roses because some people have wealth. It's not.
Good question. I'll get Coffee to answer that in a second. African Wealth, got you.
Yeah, well, I just wanted to say the conversation was kind of getting too contentious, like debate. And I think particularly for Coffee, what I want and the viewers to understand is that, like, for instance, me, I don't have a problem with capitalism. I just see it as a part of economics. Let me finish. So it's like, I think what Kofi does a lot of time, he makes economics equal capitalism. It's like if I was to make physics simply Newtonian mechanics. So there is, like, just because we're discussing it doesn't mean we have a problem. It's a natural part of evolution, and whether you like it or not, you might say it's the most viable now, but there may be a time where something else would arise. Like when I say, the concept of a shareholder, when I discuss that, that's not me attacking capitalism. I'm having a conversation in terms of economics or how, financing and money works. That doesn't mean I'm against capitalism, right? But these are the types of conversations which would occur along the way to whatever would evolve. So you don't have to take it as an attack against capitalism, my brother. You know what I mean? That's all.
No, it's a good point. It's a good point. Coffee, I'm going to allow you to go, but there is somebody in... let me just check. Sorry, Wakanda, how are you?
Yo, ShakaRa. What's going on, man?
Greetings. Oh, I think I know that one. What's it called? All right, we're going to come back to you after Coffee goes, all right? But give time. Blessings. Go ahead, Coffee.
Yeah, respect. That's one point I would say. I don't see economics as synonymous with capitalism. Yeah, you have different types of economic systems. It's just that the socialist economics system is far less productive compared to the capitalist system. That's the point I was making. The Virgin in America, the comrade in America, talk about say people not getting benefits. People not getting benefits in America. He's working and he's not getting benefits. Well, if you're not getting benefit, why are you working? The whole point of trade, or what is known as a trader principle, is that you get a surplus and the capitalist gets a surplus. That is the incentive that is necessary for trade to take place and for value creation to take place.
Sorry, Coffee. I don't interrupt you. Just repeat what you said about, just repeat what you just said a minute ago about surplus. Just repeat that sentence again.
Please let me respond too.
Yeah,
I will
trade,
finish. Go ahead.
Two people come to the table, they have something to offer each other, and if they agree, it means implicitly that both agree that their position is better off than it would have been without that trade, or the trade.
That's not what you said. You said something about surpluses. I'm asking you to repeat what you said.
Yes. That's how
in
wealth
relation
is created.
In relation to employer and employee relationship. Repeat what you said.
Yes, that is how the surplus is created. That is how value is created.
I'm asking you to repeat
wealth.
it. I'm asking you to repeat it. What did you say?
A mad statement still. Go on, Kofi.
Huh?
Repeat what you said.
Anyway, the point.
Repeat what you said, please. Repeat what you said.
I try to repeat, but I don't know what you're really asking.
The two people that are trading, the two parties that are trading, you're talking about them both trading off of surplus of a particular.
Right. The employer, the employer get a surplus and the worker get a surplus. If the worker get a surplus, if the worker did not get a surplus, the worker would not have agreed to the trade, which is why it seemed ludicrous that the Virgin complain and say he's not getting any benefit. So why you get up in the morning and go to work on time and do your job diligently and go back home and feed your family? If it's not benefiting you, then why are you doing it? Which is the point I'm making with sweatshops. It may not be the best the best job for people with low skills, but based on the options available to them at that time, it is the best option, or they would not have chosen sweatshops. Because everybody know, the unions and the government in Jamaica and politicians know that if they repeal all the labor laws and say, yo, anybody can come who want to make money, come to Jamaica and open a factory and make money, they know that they're going to see lines long, miles for miles of people who want to work.
Sorry, Kofi, can I ask you a quick question, brother? Just quickly.
One second, AM. Sorry, because there is somebody else on the panel, and I do want to wrap up soon. Yeah?
So the thing about definition, so somebody mentioned definitions. Yeah, it's important for definitions. Capitalism is a system of private ownership of the means of production, and is facilitated through voluntary trade and value creation. Socialism is the social or state ownership of the means of production. It's as simple as that. It's not that I'm defining capitalism here, but not the same everywhere. Capitalism cannot be intrinsic to colonialism, because if you're going to argue that, then you're going to argue that Nebuchadnezzar was a capitalist, Alexander the Greek was a capitalist, the Romans were a capitalist. And we know that's not true. That's nonsense. Capitalism came at a specific time in human history. A good socialist don't even argue that a feudalist and a capitalist is the same thing, because as Marx showed, the capitalist system is far more productive than the feudal system. And the reason why it is more productive than the feudal system is because of that very thing I'm talking about: value creation, voluntary exchange, and the trader principle. That is what makes capitalism the best system available. And that's what Garvey was trying to tell black people until, socialists in the Garvey movement try to undermine the message. Next one is value. ShakaRa mentioned value. Yeah, it's a good question. How is value created? And implicitly based on what ShakaRa.
It's not what I asked, but okay.
No, you're saying that the producers are not getting the. No, you're saying the producers are not getting the true value of their product, right? That's a socialist talking point. Because socialists believe that value is created through the working hours, the time that your labor hours you put into a product. Whereas other schools of economic thought say that value is created through subjective valuations. What people want versus what them don't want, or what them want it, or how badly them want it now versus how badly them want it in the future, etc. And that is how value is achieved. Not based on how many hours you put in on labor hours. You mentioned Belgium and how Congo made Belgium industrial and wealthy, etc. Belgium got industrialized before they became an imperialist.
Sorry, that's not what I said. This is the point, right? There's an obfuscation, misrepresentation, and muddying of the waters. I never said anything about.
Did Belgium get rich before they became an imperial power?
It matters not, and I know this is the neoliberal defense mechanism.
But you said that imperialism.
The point was that the capitalists from the Western world were heavily invested in the colonial project in the Belgian Congo. That was the statement that was made. Yes, that was the statement that was made. Okay, so that when Belgium industrialized is inconsequential to that argument.
No, it's not, because if Belgium got rich before,
excuse me, thank you. The point that was made was capitalists all around the Western world were heavily invested in the Belgian colonial project. That was the statement that was made. Okay.
Some capitalists are all capitalists.
Something here,
right.
Shaka.
Nothing but about and what finally.
Some capitalists are all capitalists.
Finally.
No, that's an easy question, you know. Some capitalists are all capitalists.
Finally.
Can we get in, Shakara? Can we say something?
Yeah, 1 second. Finally, just one sentence here. This is just to show you the goal shifting that takes place here. Western Europe was a colonizer under its feudal system and its capitalist system. Yeah. Transitioning to capitalism didn't make them any less colonizers. Okay.
Yes, it did. Yes, it did. Because Britain got bankrupt as a result of imperialism.
Okay.
Imperialism is an expensive project.
Excuse me. Thank you very much. All right. The colonial project. The colonial project, existed through the feudal and the capitalist phase.
So
and
why
the
won't you get bankrupt?
And the neo-colonial project.
Mismanagement by capitalists.
It's too expensive. Yeah.
And the neo-colonial project continues to this day. Yeah?
And it's bankrupt in America.
All right. The Wakanda.
Yeah, just to add to the point here, right? So I think you made a good point that, like, even when there are feudals, they still colonize, right? So, but if you follow the natural trend of this capitalism, right, in the future, I think there is a surplus of capital, right? So when there is a surplus of capital, the extraction of resources would be exploited from all around the world, right? So, but like as a system, it doesn't necessarily have a problem in itself. It's not like intrinsically bad for society in general, right? Because at the bottom of it is like, say for example, if you're just bartering, right? Like if you're just exchanging things, if there is no surplus of capital to be invested on other things, then that wouldn't be realistic, right? So if there's capital, then you have to allocate it to extract resources so that you can allocate that resource. So I don't think there's a problem with capitalism. I think what happens in the future would be something that.
One more on my team.
I think what happens in the future would be something like resources would be based on technology, right? So that in that way, like instead of enslaving other people, then maybe we'll utilize robots rather than human beings for labor-intensive things, right? So,
how long have you been watching Wakanda? How long have you been watching?
I just got in.
Okay, so yeah, because what you just said in terms of technology was where we actually started the conversation, and what we was on. But you'll have to get to the beginning of the show to understand.
But do you actually have like a problem with capitalism as a system, or what it was?
Yes, he does.
For in Africa.
Both.
Okay, as a system, let's just address the first one, right? Like, if you have a problem with capitalism as a system, what is your contention, or what are the what are the problems with capitalism?
And so this is a broader conversation that we don't have the time for right now because I'm about to be closing the show. Yeah, but in short, capitalism is an exploitative system that relies upon that is based upon the interest from its very inception of men, in particular, of wealth and property, and extracting labor and resources from other people and nations for the benefit of that group of people. The rhetoric of capitalism, especially when it came to having to justify itself in a world whereby imperialist projects were increasingly frowned upon, tends to try to negate the extent to which it built itself off of that exploitation. When we actually study it in real terms, and when we look at capitalism in the real economy, rather than the conceptual frameworks of the minds of its proponents, then we will see its real life effects. And so within that respect, I am far more inclined towards economic systems that put people and the interest and the development of people first, rather than property and profit motives first.
Yeah, but like if there is like a division of labor, right? Like if there is, if you believe there must be a division of labor, the markets should dictate.
Divisions of labor. Divisions of
No,
labor
no,
are not,
hold on. Let me
are not
finish.
exclusive
Yeah.
to
Yeah, let
There
him
is,
capitalism.
finish. Let him finish.
yeah,
Let him
if there
finish.
is a division of labor, which is necessary, I believe, right? Because say for example, if you were just bartering, if I have an iPhone, you have a horse, you have to cut the horse in half to exchange with my iPhone because they don't have equal values, right? So
No, and again, this is the point, right?
so hold
Your
on. Let
whole
me just
argument.
hold on. Let me just finish, right? So if there is a division of labor, right, and if people are exchanging through a medium of exchange, some sort of money or anything, right, like some sort of a medium of exchange. If I make something, you make something, that means division of labor. I have something you want, so that we have to facilitate that exchange. In that exchange, there comes money, right? So if you believe
Again,
if you believe those things are necessary, then capital will be there, and that capital will be allocated based on free market, what people need. The market dictates what's needed in one place and what's needed. Each
But
community
you're
or each.
boring ShakaRa. Him don't believe in capital and money. Him believe in
sorry.
those happy
Allow, allow,
exchange
allow, allow, allow,
and
allow me to speak for myself. Allow
gift
me to speak for myself.
giving and
Coffee, allow me to speak
communal
for myself.
giving.
Allow me to speak for myself. Thank you very much. Okay. Yeah. The issue that, and again, we don't have the time for this conversation today, right now, at this point anyway. The issue that we have is that we're doing exactly what Melaman said earlier, whereby we're defining economics as capitalism. Okay. So the
No,
idea,
that's not what he's doing.
again, you have a very, I don't know, like it's compulsive.
Well, you
It's
too.
very
You
compulsive.
too. You too. So
Maybe,
go ahead.
maybe so, brother. And at the point where you have evidence of that compulsion, then please feel free to present it to me. And I
Okay.
mean the compulsion. Yes, not an incident of it, but the compulsion.
All right,
Okay.
explain to us
All right.
why you're doing
Excuse me. Thank you. All right. Trade is not inherently capitalistic. Division of labor is not exclusive to capitalism. Okay, and so we discuss these things again outside of the history, the actual real history of the development of the thing itself, and attempt to justify it on those terms. Yeah, and make things that are basic. That money existed before capitalism. Yes, even
But
division
still,
of
it's
labor,
necessary. It's one
yeah,
of the
existed before
necessary ingredients.
capitalism, right? Whether we're not denying or debating whether it's necessary or not. What we are saying is that these elements existed, many of them existed prior to a system called capitalism. So they are not exclusive to capitalism. So defining division of labor and the existence of money and exchange and trade as capitalism exclusively is intellectually dishonest. Yeah, because all of these things existed prior to the capitalist system. All right, so that's but again, we're gonna have to come back to this conversation at our point. I know Ty 313 wants to respond. He's been very patient. I am going to allow him to respond now. And yeah, we're going to be wrapping up soon, brothers and sisters, because we've been on since 9 o'clock, and you know me, I usually like to keep the show to 2 hours. All right, go ahead, Ty.
I appreciate you, brother. First, I wanted to speak on I won't speak on the Virgin comments, but I'll just speak on what he said about America and the benefits that workers are in the between workers and I'm guessing the employers. But I'm guessing he hasn't been up on recent events in America when the unions are all over America, up in ante multiple industries about the wages, and would think that if mostly white unions are angry about wages and benefits, what could black people or the poor be like? I just wonder what's happening with that. And
By the
because he
way, that,
said,
that that reality replicates itself all over the Western world. Like practically every union that exists has been on strike in the UK for the last couple of years.
yeah. So I was just saying that to compare. He said that that it's benefits in that. Why are you going to work? And I'm like, it's people not going to work to survive. Not just like he's saying that it's not people who's working and not getting proper benefits by their employers. Like that's not a worldwide thing. And he said it like out by saying just because America. I don't even understand his point to be completely honest. But
Yeah, that's
about
right.
America, but another point about America, he said that that if America is completely capitalist, because I don't they keep talking about America being just completely capitalist, is them bailing out big banks and big businesses capitalist? Is that capitalist? I don't think so.
My turn to
I don't think that's competitive. So I really don't think that, and so I don't think they're uniquely capitalist either. And so I think that he should do some more research about America before he speaks.
All right.
And that's all I
So
wanted to say.
I'll give you a right of reply coffee to wrap up the thing.
Well, that's all I want. I'll let him speak because you are on a time limit, but I appreciate
Yes, sir.
you for
Thank you very
letting me
much.
speak.
Much appreciated, my brother, and thank you for the spirit that you've engaged the conversation today. I do appreciate it. It helps to facilitate as well. So I give thanks for that also. Go ahead, coffee.
yeah, all right. So, maybe in the heat of the discussion, he may have missed it or invented something in his head. But I never said that America is completely capitalist. I've always been saying that the present system is a deformed version of capitalism because of the various layers of government intervention and so forth. I've never said it's completely capitalist. The Federal Reserve is an anti-capitalist institution. It's not a free market in the value of money. Yes, I've never said that. What I'm saying
The Federal
is
Reserve is a private institution. It's not a government institution.
no, it is. It was created by the government. It was given monopoly powers by the government to create money.
It's not a government institution.
Let me
He's
done.
right.
Let me done. Let me done, no man. Let me done, no man. It was given powers by the government to create monopoly, a monopoly in the issuance of money. That institution did not always exist in America. Before the Federal Reserve or the central bank, they had private issuance of money, right? So a central bank is not a capitalist institution. When the Federal Reserve makes so-called profits, it goes to the Treasury. When it makes losses, it goes to the Treasury. That's not a free market institution. And him also mentioned benefits and surplus and whatever. Auto workers and workers now are having problems, but that's not because of capitalism, but because of government intervention and the Fed inflating the money supply, making it getting cost of living out of the hands of workers, etc. That's not capitalism. The point I'm making is that the reason why you get up every morning and go to work is because you see benefit in it. Right, that's the point I'm making. That's what capitalism does. You get surplus out of the arrangement, and the employer gets surplus out of the arrangement. Both sides benefited more than they otherwise would have been. And ShakaRa said capital, trade, and division of labor existed before capitalism. Of course, nobody was. Well, I never read the Wakanda guy as saying that is capitalism invented it. What he was saying is that what I get from what you were saying is that the money system evolved out of barter and it's more efficient than barter. And therefore, the money system that existed prior to capitalism, or the money system existed prior to capitalism, but capitalism thus far is the most efficient use of that money system. Every other system that use that same money system, whether it's feudalism, slavery, or socialism, fail to lift the standard of living for everybody. And in America, the standard of living for the workers and the capitalists has risen exponentially. I don't need to go back to the graph. where the GDP shoot up. Everybody is better off in America than they were decades ago. Yes, there are problems, but that's not capitalism.
All right. Imhotep, final word.
Peace, God. Okay, so regarding the labor strikes in the United States, to the best of my knowledge, the reason that the workers are facing those difficulties is indeed government intervention, but in the case of deregulation of these massive corporations such that they can exploit their workers even more. And as far as I can see, that is the government trying its best to make the market more free. So as far as I can see, it seems that the freer the market gets, the worse it is for workers.
Auto workers were bailed out. How is that?
Please
Was
be
that
quiet, sir.
deregulation?
Please be quiet, sir.
The auto workers were not bailed out.
The companies, right. And if they had gone bankrupt, the workers wouldn't have a job.
It's an entirely different scenario. So
that's not deregulation. They were bailed out. The workers and the capitalists were both bailed out.
Sorry, Imhotep, go ahead. Go ahead, Imhotep.
If thanks, King. You mentioning a little bit earlier, Brother Coffee, about voluntary exchange being a part of the equation in a capitalist society, and I think that is what the Brother Tai was referencing when he was saying that they're not getting the benefits from working as one would expect, because it is not voluntary exchange anymore. It's not that jobs are so plentiful and quality that one can really have one's pickings of what one chooses to do with one's career. Instead, most of the jobs are trash. Cost of living is very high. Most people are underemployed, even with their first and sometimes second degrees. So the exchange of labor, as well as the time that one takes to get one's education, is not the quality of recompense that you're getting from an employer is not up to scratch. It is forced by the nature of the diminution of the quality of the work environment. So I feel, I'm not an economist, so I suspect that there are a few things which you are leaving out of your analysis of the state of global capitalism and imperialism when you're making these assertions about capitalism. But Brother ShakaRa, I did have one point, unless I misunderstood, I have one point of difference with you, where I would say that I think imperialism actually engendered capitalism. Imperialism and colonialism generated the actual resources and the industries that were necessary to develop what became capitalism rather than capitalism starting imperialism. But I might be misunderstanding either what you said.
No, we agree on that completely. Yeah, that we have no disagreement.
Yeah, Eric Williams. Debunked. Long time.
Well, I didn't hear what the Brother Coffee said.
He's praising Eric Williams because that's the argument that Eric Williams makes in the book Capitalism and Slavery. He's suggesting that Eric Williams was debunked. Eric Williams has never been debunked. He's been challenged, and free market capitalists in particular have done their best, to propagate a narrative that tries to debunk Eric Williams, but they've never been able to do so. And the reality is that
which one tried to debunk him?
The reality is that in their attempt to do so, Eric Williams gave
name one.
He banned his own book for a period of time.
Name one contrary view. Name one critique of Eric Williams.
It's still not on the curriculum. It's still banned in Trinidad. The government don't own the printing rights, etc.
That's not true. CXC,
you being serious?
CXC and A level.
Hold on. Where you say a while ago?
CXC and A levels history have.
Where you say a while ago?
As far as I'm aware, it's still banned in Trinidad. It's not part of the syllabus. The government does not own the printing rights, anything like that.
CXC and A levels in the Caribbean history courses reference Eric Williams. Come on,
man. I could be wrong. I ain't gonna fight you.
Sorry, do they reference capitalism and slavery?
It is a text that's used in the syllabus. Come on.
I'm gonna verify that, but we'll see how
I
that
wouldn't
goes.
fight
No, you
that.
never do CXC. You never do CXC history or A
No, not
levels.
CSC history. No,
Live
no,
at
no.
England.
Huh?
Oh, I thought you.
No, I didn't do CSEC history.
Oh, CSEC, right? Oh, you're young. Actually, you don't even know what
CSEC is just
Said he didn't do CSEC
Yeah, no, no.
history. Yeah, so not
Yeah,
CSEC
yeah,
in
yeah.
general. I'm sure him do some CSEC. You never do CSEC history.
yeah.
Yeah, all
Coffee,
right,
yes.
cool. Interesting. So, was he finished Imhotep?
Yeah, I think that was it. Yeah. Oh no,
All right.
actually no. The one last thing I've asked the brother Coffee before if he could give me the names of certain people. He asking you for the names, but I want him to tell me some names of some people who debunk Eric Williams, because I would definitely love to see the debunking of that marvelous work that he had to ban in his own country because it was making people too radical.
All right. Coffee. I will give you the opportunity to name some scholars who you think are debunking Eric Williams. Please restrict yourself to the naming of the scholars and their work, because I have Melaman for a last comment and we're gonna close.
Directly debunking his work.
Yeah. Thomas Sowell, black liberals, no, black rednecks and white liberals. If you look in the text, he references people like Easterling, same name Easterling from the 70s, and so debunking the idea that the so-called profits from the slave trade that was what financed the Industrial Revolution. You can read that book. Have you read that book? Because you sound like you read it already.
No, I haven't. So I've actually just went to look it up as soon as you.
What I will say,
respect.
What I will say is that I acknowledge that argument. Yes, that argument. Sorry, is heavily invested in by apologists for neoliberalism. No. I know. I'm simply acknowledging that you what you just said is because I don't. Yeah, because there are some, and I'm forgetting the name of this paper, and the author, but there are some that deal with Eric Williams directly. But the talking point in relation to the fact that somehow the Western world engaged in colonialism and somehow never profited from it in any way, shape, or form.
That's not the argument. That's not the argument. That's not the argument. Come on.
It's actually well
That's not the
exercised.
argument. That wasn't the argument.
Discourse. No, they engage in all this murder, all this theft. Yeah,
all right, ShakaRa, you asked me for one book,
but they never benefited from it whatsoever. No profit was made.
Nobody
from
said
these
that.
things whatsoever. And the nation,
let's move on.
Once again, the nation that they were robbing from, were not underdeveloped as a result of all this thieving and robbery at all. Yes, in fact, they benefited from colonialism. That's that, and the capitalist involvement in it. All right, Meloman, got you.
Okay, I just had one last thing to say because I hear Kofi come back with the same graph thing. So, right, you can't take credit for the Industrial Revolution and attach it to capitalism, right? I realize that's actually a thing very popular, and there's even there's a physicist on YouTube very popular that did a video, and she actually said the exact same thing Kofi said, and there's been all kind of people debunking her ever since. But yeah, the Industrial Revolution cannot be credited to capitalism. Capitalism took what, 200-300 years to, and then the Industrial Revolution happened. It's due to science and technology. It's due to science and technology. It's due to science and technology. Right, it's due to science and technology, not due to economists and their policies and theories, right? It's due to science and technology. And yeah, that's it.
By the way, nations have industrialized using other economic systems than capitalism. So we can certainly say, and I don't think
like
even most Marxists,
like
even most classical Marxists would argue that the mode of production in capitalism didn't accelerate certain elements of production and so on and so forth and the blah 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 blah. Marxists argue it. Marx himself argues.
Which non-capitalist country?
Marx himself argues that the idea, however, that attributing industrialization exclusively to capitalism is just
Which
ahistorical.
non-capitalist country industrialized?
However, we have to close up the show, brothers and sisters. We will continue these conversations, I'm sure, at a future point. All right. And yeah, and I allowed, by the way, this to go the way it did because obviously I brought a video that raises a lot of these points. Yeah, so we have to respect the fact that that's what in fact I did. Okay, and so the conversation is going to go down certain roads because of that. I encourage brothers and sisters that if you want to raise other points, feel free to join the panel because your points will be considered and you can contribute to the conversation. For example, if you wanted to discuss more social media and the algorithm and usage and so on and so forth, that was another conversation that we could have had today, etc., etc., etc. Feel free to do so. All right, Coffee, I'm taking everybody off the panel now. Melaman just gone, so give thanks for joining as always, and everybody is done gone already. So once again, appreciating everybody ready to come through, you know what I'm saying, and do remember to like the video and share it, kings and queens. Tomorrow, as you can see at the bottom of your screen, we begin Sankofa, the future of Black history, and we will be engaging in our Black History Month series. You can get all information as well as registration details at gotkushTV.com, gotkushTV.com. Very, very important lively conversation that we had today, yeah, the points that came out of the original video. So if you were not watching from the beginning, I encourage you to go watch from the beginning. What we engaged in was a brief watch of 10 minutes of an interview that an economist, politician, and intellectual by the name of Yanis was engaging in from his book, which is entitled Techno-feudalism, What Killed Capitalism. And that's another talking point we could have got into because of the fact that the gentleman is making the statement that, in fact, it is the capitalists themselves who have killed capitalism by bringing it into a techno-feudalist context. Yeah, and you can listen to his argument via the video at the beginning. It's an interesting argument, and there are many points in it that I think are worthy of our consideration. Okay. And having said all of that, I began by discussing the extent to which our existence on platforms such as YouTube, such as Facebook, TikTok, such as Instagram, such as Twitter, etc., when we look at it from a Pan-African point of view, is a contradiction because of the extent to which we are producing capital for institutions that are dedicated and pledge their allegiance to the neo-colonialist imperialist Western world. Yeah, and so there comes a point, yeah, whereas we understand the nature of our current context and the reason why we use these platforms, namely most of our people are engaged with them in some way, shape, or form. And so when we're trying to engage in political education, cultural reorientation, we will engage the platforms where our people are at. Yeah, there's a context for that. At some point, that engagement becomes an irreconcilable contradiction. So it can only be a means to an end and not an end in and of itself. Yeah. Okay. That's where I began the conversation. All right. I used an example of my social media interaction and, you know, how I was posting every day. And, you know, you see the numbers uptick and so on and so forth. And then you miss a few days and yet, you know, you come back, you're posting less frequently and then your numbers dip, right? And so it requires you to engage in this process, yeah, of data creation for the companies themselves, yeah? So we have to just be mindful of this, yeah? And the extent to which that idea and that relationship between us and those who own these platforms substantiates Yanis's argument, yeah? So that's an interesting point. Then we got onto an issue of choice, okay? And the idea that we work because there's a benefit in working. The perceived benefit in working is dependent upon the nature of the choices that are available to you. So if the choice is between being able to buy rice and not being able to buy rice, most of us are going to choose to buy rice. Okay? All right. But then the question then becomes, well, is my capacity to buy rice the only consideration here? And is it a justifiable context for me to exist in that my only option is buying rice? Yeah, it can be significantly argued that our ancestors who worked from that perspective, yeah, from that capitalist free market fundamentalist perspective, it can be argued, and it will often be argued, that our ancestors who worked plantations did so because there was a benefit in it. Yeah, our ancestors, to whatever degree they working the plantation and being able to work the plantation required them to be fed and sustained. In order to do that work, were fed. Yeah, our ancestors who worked plantations were given food by the enslaver. Our ancestors who worked on plantations were given rags to wear on the plantation. So the enslaver could justify, there's a benefit to you doing because I'm going to clothe you. Our ancestors who worked in the house may have got even something more than rags. The choice was between working the plantation and torture. Working the plantation and death. So within the context of the available options, there was a benefit in working the plantation. I want to all of us with me, I say. Within our current reality, there are certain work options available to us. And the options that we have is to engage in that work or starve. Yeah, exist in a state of poverty. Then there's, when we take it on the international level, we have to deal with the fact that for us in the Western world, the accessibility of jobs that we have, the accessibility to welfare systems that we have is predicated upon destroying the capacity for the development of similar jobs and welfare systems in the nations from which we come. In other words, profit margins for Western corporations in this day and age are reliant upon nations in Africa and the Caribbean not industrializing. Which is why every attempt that Africans have made to industrialize on our own terms has been fought against by the same people who promote free market capitalism. Them send them army, them navy, their multinational corporations and their intelligence agencies to destroy, destabilize, murder, kill, assassinate, rob, and pillage. It's happening today. There's a poem by Anum Iapo, also known as Ankanu. It says, each day that I am living, I count my blessings, for its praises that I am given to the one that bleeds me. For I'm eating the bread of my family's sorrow. I'm drinking the blood of my own tomorrow. I'm eating the bread of my family's sorrow. I'm drinking the blood of my own tomorrow. We who live in the West, with the benefits of 24/7 electricity, yeah, and all of these things are eating the bread of our family's sorrow. We have a live example of this right here now. Niger basically fuels France's electricity, whilst Niger lacks consistent electricity. We are eating the bread of our family's sorrow. We are drinking the blood of our own tomorrow. The extent to which we continue to be comfortable in that perpetual existence, we are digging our own graves as African people. If our lives and our development and our prosperity is linked to our people back home, we are drinking the blood of our own tomorrow. So the capitalist succeeds on two fronts. The first is that they convince you that history has now ended, that there is no more viable system, so you have to accept the choices that are given to you by the capitalists. Not the choices that are possible, but the choices that are presented to you by the dictates of the capitalists. History has ended. We have reached the pinnacle. And within that context, they are able to create an environment whereby the options that they give you are the only viable options. If you seek an option outside of that framework, what happened to the Osaja for Kwame Nkrumah is going to happen to you. What happened to Maurice Bishop is going to happen to you. What happened to Thomas Sankara is going to happen to you. What happened to Nomzamo Madikizela Winnie Mandela is going to happen to you. What happens to the most eminent prophet, Marcus Mosiah Garvey, is going to happen to you. Oh, for the overstand with me, I say. Yeah? So even when it comes to your labor, you shouldn't ask for anything more from your labor. This idea that we enter into a negotiation. It is not common within capitalist economies for laborers to set the value of their labor. Yeah, that's done by the employers. Okay, it's not done through a negotiation between employers and laborers. That's not how it runs. Yeah, you apply for a job. The value of the job is already dictated to you via your monthly and your yearly wage. That's how the thing go. All right. And whenever the laborers begin to organize, the corporations, the systems, and the government that work in their interest organizes to crush that energy and that vibration. So the question for us then becomes, as African people, are we able to conceptualize beyond these confines? Are we able to see through the intellectual dishonesty that surrounds and is embedded in, particularly the neoliberal discourse? The neoliberal discourse that seeks to tell us that Rockefeller is a shining example of capitalist development. But then when Rockefeller invests in South Africa, apartheid, Belgian Congo, King Leopold, somehow that's no longer capitalism. That Unilever, the Royal Africa Company, is a shining bastion of capitalist free market, etc., etc. But then when Unilever engages in annexing and creating Nigeria for colonial exploitation, it's no longer at that point capitalist. Hey, that's some serious Jim Screechy business are going on. Yeah. And we're gonna delve more into these things as we develop gotkushTV. Yeah, we're gonna be educating brothers and sisters about these dynamics in greater detail. Okay. I could say so much more. I could say so much more on Gavia economics. What we're going to do more work on that. I hope brothers and sisters are enjoying the platform and the shows. And I do want to, as we get towards our close, let you know about the fact that we will be engaged in a whole heap of different thing. Yeah. This month, our ZIVANAYI shows are going to be very, very pertinent and eventful this month. So let me show you what's going to be going on. As well as our Black History Month series, we got a magnificent array of shows, yeah? And first and foremost, we are going to be honoring the Grenada revolutionaries. This month is the 40th anniversary since the assassination of Maurice Bishop and the implosion of the Grenada Revolution, which was followed by an American invasion, which was directed by Ronald Reagan and led by Colin Powell. You know what I mean? So yeah, we on the 10th and the 17th of October, we are going to be delving into the Grenada Revolution, looking at its successes, its challenges, the things that it wasn't able to succeed for whatever reason. Look into the dynamics of the implosion and the lessons that we can learn from it. On the 10th of October, next week, Ujima Day, Tuesday, we'll be viewing some documentaries, yeah, of the Grenada Revolution. And just getting a vibe and a feel for what it was and what it achieved and what it succeeded in doing by people that were involved in it and brothers and sisters who were living in Grenada during that time. So we're talking about live footage from the time itself. And then on the 17th, I've got a panel together. Yeah, we've got a panel together. We are going to be breaking down, yeah, some of the issues pertaining to the Grenada Revolution and how it impacted the Caribbean and also the African continent. All right, so do stay tuned for that. Yeah, gonna be a powerful, powerful show. All right, so look forward to that. Then now on the all on there. Let me go to the next tab. We have two shows dedicated to the dynamics of West Africa right here now, in particular, the fight against French neocolonialism, yes, in our West Africa as it stands right now. Okay? Sorry, brothers and sisters. Oh, you know, yeah, I've got it correct. All right. So on the 24th of October, we have France Must Go Part 1. Yeah, France Must Go Part 1. And I'm going to be joined in these two shows by our sister Kushti. And during Part 1, she's going to deliver some, you know, basic ground information, yeah, ground level information that we need to understand about the dynamics that are taking place, particularly in the nations of Burkina Faso, Mali, Guinea, and Niger as it currently stands. Okay? Then on the 31st of October, Sister Kushti is going to join me for a panel discussion. We're going to co-host that panel discussion whereby we will be engaging a panel, which I'm still constructing. So do stay bear with me. All right. On the issues that are taking place, Pan-African analysis on the issues that are taking place in West Africa as it stands, particularly as it relates to French neocolonialism. Yeah, you do not want to miss these shows. Set your reminders from now. Set your reminders from now. All right. As a case in point, though, let me just say this, yeah, that French neocolonialism goes beyond the French-speaking African nations. Yeah, and an example of this is the fact that recently the main port, yeah, in Tema, which is in Ghana, was sold and is now owned by a French billionaire. Okay, all right. I don't know, no nation, yeah, that is self-respecting that is going to sell off its primary port, exporting and importing port to a foreign corporation. Yeah, I don't know where that go on. All right, yeah. So Do come true, kings and queens. Yeah, do come true. Do come true. I look forward to seeing you beginning tomorrow. The Sankofa, the future of Black history begins. Get your tickets at gotkushTV.com. Get your tickets at gotkushTV.com, and we look forward to seeing you there. Tenda Mwari, be thankful unto the Mother, Father, creative life force of the universe. Kudzai Muzimu Mukulu, give praises unto our great ancestors. Bibi Tumi, Bibi Fahodie, African power and African liberation for all African people. And do remember, you ain't got nothing if you ain't got Kush.
gotkushTV presents Sankofa, the future of Black history, a unique Black History Month online series exploring all dimensions of time as we chronicle the Black past, command the Black present, and empower the Black future. Workshops include The Future is Black. Why is Black history under attack? With ShakaRa, We Create Value, the ingenuity of enslaved Africans, with Robin Walker. Ancestral coding, agriculture, and the Opobo Library Initiative with Aya Eleni. Quantum field theory as African heritage with Asar Imhotep. For full information including dates and registration, visit gotkushtv.com. We have made history. We are making history. There is history still to be made. Sankofa, the future of Black history. A Black History Month series not to be missed.
Sankofa, the future of Black history, is sponsored by Black History Walks. #1 for Black History Walks, talks, films, and tours in London. For more information, visit blackhistorywalks.co.uk.